Welcome, everyone, to episode 98 of Bourbon and BS podcast. I just got a notification that we are going live on Facebook. I've got Spencer Lappin back in the garage, which I'm happy to have you back, Spencer. Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
And then it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been over a year.
It's a Nickelback lyric.
Yeah.
There's somebody.
Nickelback, one of the greatest bands of all time.
Topic for tonight, Nickelback.
Taking
One
risks.
of the greatest bands in history.
Yeah, no, debatably. Anyways, Bob Brayer's back in the garage, the new garage. He has not been over here yet, so welcome to the new studio.
Happy to be here.
Jesus Christ. We have some great whiskey selections from the gracious Bob Brayer. All barrel proof, I believe.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, yes.
Okay. We'll get into it here.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
Let's
And then we're smoking the a new cigar, actually, called Ilegal Tobaco, and we'll get into that as well. This is Ilegal Tobaco Habano, so we'll get into that. Nate, if you want to go ahead and do the sponsors here for us while I share everything.
Yeah, so the Ilegal Tobaco cigar is being provided to us tonight by Tinderbox at Easton, Easton Town Center, Columbus, Ohio. From now until the shop closes on Christmas Eve, that cigar is going to be 15% off. You can call. It's very limited supplies. I think we only have 2 boxes of the Habano that we're smoking, and then 2 boxes of San Andreas as well. Our second cigar this evening is going to be the Monte Cristo Espada, and that's being provided to us by Altadis USA, Monte Cristo, H. Upman, Romeo Julieta, and many others. Third sponsor this evening is Bourbon and BS, or I'm sorry, BS Cigar Company. Got it. Got BS Silvers laying around the garage. I know there's a few of us smoking some right now. And then also don't forget to please like and share, leave us a review, and don't forget we also started the Patreon page. We're increasing our number of patrons and as well as our sponsorship dollars, so that's helping.
What do I get for my sponsorship dollar? Just out of curiosity.
Well,
that's going to be changing in the near
yeah.
future.
As far as what you get in the mail so far, you're not going to get anything at this point. However,
Money.
Good suspense. That's good suspense.
now, so basically with the Patreon page, as of now, what we're doing is it's going to go towards helping us basically stay afloat, where it's self-sustaining podcast. So what we're trying to do now going into year 3 of this really is that hopefully we can have enough Patreon dollars for the start, along with the sponsorship with Altadis especially. Tinderbox at Easton provides the weekly cigars, so that helps out, obviously, so we can feature cigars. And then with Altadis, they not only provide the second weekly cigar, they also have a little bit of sponsorship dollars that actually helps us out with they're going to be reimbursing me for the mixer board along with some other things. And then the Patreon dollars, actually, what we want to do is to get an opportunity to have different bourbons every week where we're not having to pay for them. The guests don't have to bring them. It's something that the community is really supporting. So it keeps it going. I mean, it's every little thing to do this podcast. Like if the phone goes down, if some of the equipment goes down again, we have to fill up our propane heaters this time of the year, obviously. So there's cost that goes into it.
Please join.
Yeah, please join. What I did have a conversation with someone. Come January, I'm going to be starting to meet with a couple of designers and printers to have some welcome gifts for Patreons, for the patrons of the Patreon. So that's something that the original founding patrons will immediately get a package. There'll be a couple of things. If you do like a $5 tier, you'll get this package. You do a like $10 tier, you'll get a welcome package along with something like about 6 months down the road. So it's coming. It's just we wanted to get it out there because people had asked about how to support the podcast. It's a good question.
Well, and I'm going to say that since the last time I've been on, I mean, with all the technology we got going on here and everything, I mean, it's not cheap to run one of these things if you want to have good equipment. So I think that's a great cause.
I appreciate that. And yeah, so if you're enjoying it, yeah, share it and all that stuff. But when we say that we're sponsored, it's not like we're getting, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars rolling in from this. You know what I mean? As far as that goes, as of now, I don't see it ever getting that big. But it's something that if we get more views, more listens, and everything else, that's going to help out, obviously, going forward to keep it self-sustaining.
Perfect.
Yeah. Nate, do you have anything else?
Just one addition. Last week's episode, we had the peg leg porker, and we weren't sure exactly what the price on the bottle was for that. That turned out to be about a $30 to $35 bottle. And then Peg Leg Porker actually got back to me, and that is a blended 4 to 6 year bourbon that we were drinking last week. It was very good. Did you turn your mic off, Spencer?
I do not know how to do that.
Well, a little switch on the mic.
There you go.
back on.
He did.
I feel like I've solved.
Bobby does that all the time.
I want to say that without me being here tonight, Spencer would not be live on the mic. I'd just like to say you're welcome.
You can start it now.
What are we going to be drinking first so we can get into this?
Well,
Brayer?
Interestingly enough, I've gone back to this older Wild Turkey rare breed.
Yeah.
I think it's a great bourbon. It's just it's so oily, butterscotch, a little bit of spice.
All right.
I want to go up in proof.
All right. I'm gonna have a little bit more of that.
You're gonna do it?
Okay,
Okay,
then we'll
you
start the
should.
audio. How about that?
You should. And then I actually went to this Weller Foolproof pick for a minute, but I'm actually back to the turkey right now.
All right.
I suggest the Willet.
Oh yeah, we're gonna keep going up in proof till we get there.
Chad Willet.
Perfect.
That'll
All right.
make sense to a few
if you
people.
want to get ready to do that part.
He's watching.
He's not watching. Are we being taped?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are.
That's not the camera, though. That's where you look.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Whiskey Wednesday to episode 98. This one is going to be about taking risks, which we are kind of taking a risk having Bob Brayer back in the garage
That's right.
with his own selection of whiskey, which he is very, very, we're gracious and thankful for you to do that. That's amazing. We have a barrel-proof lineup here, Brayer's barrel-proof buffet.
The alliteration.
Buffet. Yeah, alliteration. Everyone loves it.
I wanted to bring some things to share that I really love and that I know quite well. Obviously, wild turkey is near and dear to my heart. There's never the wrong time for wild turkey, in my opinion. We're going to work our way from that to the Weller Foolproof, which is 114 proof, and then we're going to go up to a 118 proof Willet Rye, a 100 and we'll do the 116 proof Willet Bourbon, then the 118 proof Willet Rye, and then I actually have a 28-year-old Cognac that I brought that is 120 proof, which is actually historically really high proof for Cognac, because most Cognac hangs out in that either they proof it down to 80 proof or it hangs out in the mid-90s if it's barrel proof. So 28 years old in the barrel.
That's dessert.
That's dessert. That's right.
Dessert.
That is dessert.
I like that. We're smoking tonight the Illegal Tobaco Habano, which I am looking forward to.
It's a great cigar.
Talking about. This is one where these guys smoke cigars. I know Bob obviously smokes a lot of cigars from everywhere, including Cuban cigars, and that's what I was really interested to have you smoke this, just because I don't think you've had it because it's that new.
Have
you had this?
I haven't had this.
Okay.
I'm very much a creature of habit when it comes to cigars, but over the last couple of years, I've let people that I trust, like you and others, really guide me towards things to try. I'm loving this.
Okay,
this
good.
is a really, really good cigar.
All right, we'll get into that a little bit more and how it pairs with some of the stuff we're drinking. Spencer Lappin, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
I like having you on. It's been enjoyable having you a part of some of these episodes. We've had a couple of great episodes with you on, and then recently, if you guys have not listened to episode 97 or 96, those were two of, I would say, some of the more powerful straight-up interviews as far as the part two portions of that. So the part one, and that's what we're doing right now. So this is the part one, and I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the Illegal Tobaco Habano. And every week they give us the weekly featured cigar. Nate shared it on the Facebook Live before we started the audio, but for those of you on the audio, this is something that's going to be 15% off at Tinderbox at Easton. We have a limited supply since it is so new, and it is a pretty hot cigar until Christmas Eve close at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. So thank you very much, Tinderbox, and also Altadis USA for the second weekly cigar, which is the Monte Cristo Espada. This is the original Espada, Nicaraguan Puro, all Plasencia tobacco. So it's a fantastic cigar, in my opinion. And
It's beautiful, man.
And it's a gorgeous presentation, absolutely. Box, I don't have the box here tonight, but it's a pretty box and also good label. And then also BBS Cigar Company. I've got a silver here next to me, which is one of my favorites, obviously. That's something that Brian and I actually blended together with Eric Espinosa and Hector down in Miami, out of their Nicaraguan factory. So that is one that if you guys have not tried it, it is exclusive to the Tinderbox at Easton as well. And that's something that it's going to be a little bit more medium full with a lot of pepper on it. So if you're interested in that, give us a call, message us, email, whatever. We'll get it to you. Taking risks, guys, is the subject for part 2, but getting into part 1, Bob, you kind of went over the buffet here. Yeah. So tell me about, you said this is, you used the term, and because we have a guy like Bob on here, Spencer, I think that Bob is kind of, let me explain Bob in my eyes.
Wild card.
Yeah, wild card is definitely the nickname for him. I've known Bob, what do you think?
12 since I moved to Columbus.
Is that 12, 14
yeah, 12 years ago.
12, 14 years ago. And I've enjoyed our friendship for a long time. When Bob gets into something, it's game over. He is
fanatical. Fanatical might be the word.
Yeah.
Passionate,
addictive personality. Some might call it, but really, no, it isn't even that. It's definitely
addicted
you are
to passion.
Addicted to passion.
There you go.
No, I mean, Bob, you have gotten into bourbon to a level that most don't, and that's other hobbies that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
It becomes part of your lifestyle. And you do it in a way that is interesting to me, and I think it's actually interesting to a lot of people because you turn it into like a community thing. You like to share, you like to educate after you educate yourself.
Yeah, I'm always on a quest for, and to bourbon especially, I'm on a quest for something I haven't tasted before. I want to find what I think is, and it's a stupid term, but I call it life-changing whiskey. When you have a whiskey that just kind of you say, wow, that is so unique, so intense. I go for the barrel proof or, type stuff. And I do get obsessed with my hobbies and the things that I collect. And it's been a really fun journey in bourbon because there's just so much that's offered. Now, it's interesting that you said a couple minutes ago we were talking about just the presentation of the Monte Cristo. And I think that bourbon has really evolved in the last, you could say the last 5-10 years, but even in the last 24 months.
Oh yeah,
presentation's everything. Everybody's putting in a crystal decanter or really weird with the boxings and stuff like that. And what I always say is it comes down to the juice inside. I don't care who makes it.
Same thing with cigars.
Yeah,
it's the tobacco.
Absolutely, it's what it is when you taste it and what it is on your palate. So yeah, I'm always on the hunt. I'm always searching for something I haven't had before or that can. Just, I don't know, it evokes that feeling of like, wow, this is really, really good. And you kind of find what you like and you do what you can with that. But for me, I guess my hobbies or the things that I'm into are all about doing it with friends, right? Like
they always have been.
I want to crack these bottles and enjoy them with friends. I think that's the essence of bourbon and cigars, right? Like I think the first time I walked into the Tinderbox in Easton, which is 2007.
And that's about the time that I was really coming around as well.
That's right. Yeah. And gosh, you remember those days. And
good days.
I like cigars a lot. I love them. But what I realized what was much more special was the group of people that came together and the friendships that were made there. And bourbon's the same thing, right? It's about sharing it. It's not about collecting it and looking at it. You got to crack the bottles. You got to open them. That's my tagline.
And we talk about that a lot on here. We have different opinions that come through the garage about especially the bourbon community on how it's changed, how it's spiked, how it's purely some people I don't want to say they barely drink it, but I mean they do. They barely drink it in ratio to what they are stocking.
That's right.
I mean they are basically preparing for like a zombie apocalypse.
Or they're prepping with bourbon, right?
Yeah. It might be the hunt,
and part of it is the collectible side of it. It literally is. I mean you're getting collectibles, and it's the same thing. I compared it a while back on an episode to when my grandmother was hitting up McDonald's for the Beanie Baby craze.
That's right.
I mean, it literally was like there were like it was instead of majority grown men, but I know there's women out there in the bourbon community as far as like the hunt. It is still majority men. It is male dominated, but I actually compare that directly to like the older ladies. And again, there were some men, but older ladies going to these McDonald's drive-thrus and literally getting in arguments and almost fights for Beanie Babies.
Now, were they trying to collect them, or were they trying to sell them on eBay, or what
They were collecting them at the time, because they were so hot. I know a lot of like my grandmother just loved them and thought they were the cutest things, and so she started getting them. And then it was like, oh, this Princess Diana bear, and they're and yeah, it's going to be it's a collectible. There's only so many, and everyone just had this idea that these are going to be worth something someday.
Yeah,
and they did actually rise in price, some of them, and then I think they fell back down like a lot of collectibles.
Right, and they're worth nothing now. But the other thing is the Beanie Babies were something where all you had to do was look at them. Right,
yeah.
You could enjoy them as much as if you looked at them in a glass case, or you played with it, or you fell asleep with it on your pillow, or whatever you were doing.
It's a basic stuffed animal. You're right. So you can't crack it. You can't, do anything.
Yeah.
The only thing you could do with Beanie Babies was give it as a gift.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, we got. I remember, like all the us grandkids got the Tabasco Bull because we were all big Bulls fans growing up in the Chicago area. It was like that came out, and that one actually did. I think it went up to about like $1,500 or something like that at one point. And we're like, oh no, let's hold on to it. And it's like now it's like I think collecting dust in a box somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the way it works. Which brings me to my point with this. What we're drinking, the rare breed, which we did feature the, I guess, current wild turkey rare breed.
Yeah, this is an older bottling.
And that was on our Thanksgiving episode. And so when you call this an old Dusty, so for those of you that are
it's kind
watching,
of a Dusty. It's you're not going to find it on a shelf anymore.
So what does that mean though? For those, because like there are a lot of people listening that don't know all the terms to the level of a collector.
Dusty is exactly what it sounds like. I have friends who travel across the United States, and they go to different major metropolitan areas and try to find old liquor stores that still have these sitting on like the bottom shelf, tucked behind bottles, and they buy it at retail. And it's one of those things where if you think about it, how is it any different? And
how old is that bottle?
I think it's a mid-'90s bottling.
So that's why it's called an old.
Yeah, because it's got dust on the shoulders.
Yeah.
There's literally dust on the shoulder of the bottle.
I mean, they had a rare breed, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving episode.
And
absolutely.
it won't taste the same. I think that's the point is...
Sure, there's a big difference between 1990-ish version and the 2019 version.
Right, that's true. And, there's a...
Different how, though? I mean, would you say it's different because of what they were doing before they put it in the bottle?
Yeah, I think...
Or does it, once it's sitting in the bottle...
I know, that's a good question. I think the water that they used to use to make the mash, and the corn they used to use, and
all
the
grains,
barrels they used to use. If you think about it, there's all this lore about these old Stitzel-Weller, Dusty, old Fitzgeralds, and earlier Van Winkle barrelings that were bottled, and they say they were thicker staves, and if you think about it, they're probably now they're cutting down every tree they can to make an oak barrel, whereas before there were more rings in the barrel. And how did the wood sugar affect that differently? And how did the older wood back then? Because
you're using natural things, so I mean,
yes, that's right. Corn, water,
changed. The environment changed in the last fucking 30 years.
Yeah, and so it just tastes different. I mean, it
did.
It did, and it depends.
We're not going to get into politics, Spencer.
Right, and it depends what you like, though. I mean, there is a very big cult following for older turkey products that they say that it's weird because you look on the bottom of the bottle and it might say 93 on there, but that could have been a bottle that was made in 93 and not used till 95. Okay. It could have been, and they say that the distillate changes when they were making it and putting it in the barrels. So there's kind of like this cutoff of 1992 for wild turkey products. So if you have the old 101s that are pre-1992 or 1992 or older, they're supposed to be different than the ones that are marked 93 on the bottom of the bottle.
And why is that?
It just seems to be a different twang. Almost like cigars have in the same sense.
Yeah.
There's something different in the way it tastes. It tastes older, bolder, more mature, and
so they could have changed something even in the recipe at that point, even though they won't admit it.
Yeah, I don't think they did, but at the same point in time, we know that like rare breed was kind of the same old pattern type of taste until '98. So 8101 in '92, rare breed 1998. And so on and so forth. And, it's really interesting how much different it tastes. I mean, this is like a butterscotch. Yeah, I'll take a nip. Thank you.
So, Bobby, several episodes ago, I was talking about we had a poker night at your establishment, and a buddy of yours brought the Old Granddad. And I was like, man, Old Granddad. It's like, yeah, you got to try it. It's like
Isn't that some $10 bottle?
Yeah, isn't that a $10 bottle? He's like, well, this one's actually like a $300 bottle.
Really?
And that one tasted like pure butterscotch.
I remember that now. You thought it was like one of the smoothest things you've ever had.
So I don't know. Does it change the way it tastes by sitting at all? Like, does it actually evaporate or things along those
There's
lines?
so much speculation on that, even down to scientific, breaking it down to the molecular structure. I think
we have time, so.
Yeah. Let me just bust out my calculator. That doesn't make sense. But the reality of it is, I think it's just the period in which the distillate was made and aged, and the conditions and the barrels and the environment and how hot it got in some summers, how cold it got in fall and winter. And, the idea is the bourbon goes into the wood and out of the wood and passes through that charred wooden interior of the barrel, and the wood sugars give it all that flavor and all those notes and all the nuances. It's hard to really say.
Well, it's got to be. I mean, just like I said, the environment of the life of the tree. I mean, again, with bourbon, it's the virgin oak barrels that I think it gets glanced over so much, that fact. I think that's something that is similar to like the cigars, but it's very much because it's a natural product. You're cutting down these trees,
right?
And
at what rate and how often?
Well,
and how old are the trees?
And again, I go back to the same thing
with
crops, the soil, right? And then the environment at that point is something that, when you cut down a tree today versus in 1985, it's gone through different.
It's probably
environmental
in the air that are getting into the soil for the corn and for the.
So it's going to affect all that.
It's probably not as mass produced either. I'm guessing.
What
I actually have
like
a really
a
cool
bourbon from back then versus like a lot of this stuff gets made at MGP and things like that. Maybe not this specifically.
No,
but
true
it's not
enough.
as mass produced.
Where are you getting the oak?
Well, that's right, because there are many cooperages now in the United States versus 30, 40 years ago. And the other thing that's really crazy is bourbon was. I actually talked to Eddie Russell about this. He said, we were doing a barrel pick of Russell's Reserve with him, and he was talking about, bourbon in the 70s was something where you were at a bar and everyone wanted clear spirits, clear rum, clear vodka, or vodka is clear. But he said someone walks in a bar and opens or orders a bourbon, you're like, well, that's a tough person right there. That's a biker. That's a yada yada yada. And don't mess with that guy.
Still the case, Bobby.
Yeah, right. And so what happened with a lot of that bourbon is the world was magnetizing to clear spirits, rums, vodkas, things like that. And so a lot of the bourbon that was, in an 8-year bottle, the bottle says 8 years on the label. It was the glut era, GLUT. It's called the glut era. And the bourbon was actually a lot older and a lot darker. And we're not talking like, it's 9 years. I mean, it's like 12 or 14-year-old bourbon.
But they were putting 8 on there?
Well, because they had already labeled the bottles and they were sitting on the shelves. And so when they went to bottle it, it was actually a lot older. That's called the glut era. So that's why you see some of those National Distillers bottles. Old Granddad, which is a National Distillers product from the 70s, and it's as black as coffee.
Really?
And so it's older juice in some of those. Not all of them.
They left it sit in the barrels?
They let it sit in the barrels because it wasn't selling. Bourbon wasn't selling in the 70s and 80s. It was all about clear liquids, and the bourbon craze started to tick up in 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then the Pappy craze hit, and there were literally guys I know because I talk about it on the internet with them because I love the lore and the old what they were doing was there were guys taking out credit cards, driving all the way through the country, buying every Pappy bottle because they just say, hey, do you have Pappy Van Winkle or Old Rip Van Winkle or Buffalo Trace Antique Collection bottles? And they would buy them all up on a credit card, and they knew that it was something worth collecting back then.
Really?
And so they were just spending $10,000 on a 5-day tour across 5 states, and they were coming home with trunk loads of cases of this stuff as it was gaining popularity in 2009, 2010. For me, I was still drinking Evan Williams back then, and I didn't realize what the bourbon rabbit hole really was.
Started drinking a little Woodford back then.
I couldn't afford Woodford back then. I was broke. And so I was drinking Evan Williams, and I'm a Heaven Hill guy. Like, it's funny how the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. I'm a Heaven Hill freak, which a lot of the sourced Willets that I, have are Heaven Hill products. They source a lot of their stuff from Heaven Hill. They source from Wild Turkey, from Brown Foreman, from Stitzel Weller.
I didn't know that.
And the Rise from MGP. I mean, that's when you start. Like, it's like if you start a distillery tomorrow or start a company where you're going to make whiskey. And even if you make distillate and you barrel it, you have to offer something to recoup your costs. Yeah. So you buy your whiskey from.
We've had a lot of those bottles on here, but I didn't know that Willet. I mean, you're talking about Are they still doing that with ryes?
Well, tell them a
Or
little
is
bit
that
about
their
the
stuff?
difference between their rye and their bourbon, maybe, and who actually makes it, things like that.
Now Willet is producing their own distillate for both.
Okay,
and
that's my question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now they
Yeah.
are because they started distilling in May of 2012.
Okay.
And so their first 4-year rolled out in June of 2016, which was a bourbon, and then they had a rye, and they're really small. It's funny. I actually
Gorgeous place.
yeah, it's a gorgeous place.
Yeah.
And if you talk to Drew, the master distiller, he'll tell you that all of their rick houses, I think they have like 6 or 7 rick houses on the property, don't equate to the same volume as one rick house up the road at Heaven Hill, which is not even a mile away.
No,
from
you can
Willet.
you can see it from there.
Yeah, you can see it from there, and their rick
Yeah.
houses are enormous. It's just amazing how they're really a small operation, but they're putting out some really good stuff. Their rye, their own rye is better than their own bourbon, but their source bourbon, the purple top source bourbon that they have, depending on which bottle you have, are just noted as epic. Some of the best whiskeys in the world.
So they're picking. They've got the taste. They just aren't able to produce it yet.
Yeah, they have a couple different. They have really 2 different profiles for the bourbon that they were sourcing. One is more of the peanut brittle profile. The other one is more of kind of the black licorice, kind of raisin-like profile.
Interesting.
Which they were picking from Heaven Hill. They were getting both. They were getting like more peanutty stuff from Brown Foreman. They were getting peanutty stuff from Heaven Hill. They were getting raisin-esque and black licorice stuff, which is more along the lines of most of the Elijah Craig barrel proofs that you've had. Some of them go over to the peanut, area, which is kind of where Henry McKenna, which is also another Heaven Hill product, kind of hangs out, is more of the peanut type bourbon, and that's a deal. Henry McKenna's a 10-year bourbon, and it used to be $33. I think it's now maybe $40.
It's 50.
It's 50.
Yeah.
But
So-
isn't everybody doing that right now?
That's what Antique is here now.
Yeah, Antique went from
Brother
$24
Antique,
to $50
Yeah.
in 2 years.
But we talked about that a little bit last week, and Bob, what's your take on that? Obviously, like you have quite the collection. People don't even realize. A lot of people don't. I know there's a few people that do that are listening. But that was one of the things we talked about with Weller Antique 107, going from $28 to $40 to $50, and now you see, or I saw Henry McKenna last week, I think it was, when I was at the store. I saw it, and I was looking at it. I'm like, I like Henry McKenna a lot. And in the past, when it was like $30-some,
It was a bargain.
well, I would just buy it because it's like, it's $30, almost doubling the price in a sense.
But so many other places are charging
I
even
understand
more.
that, and I get why they did it. But now for me, it's like that week. I know they're completely different, but I went over and I was like, I'm just gonna get a Four Roses small batch
Yeah.
because
Nothing wrong
it's
with that.
$30.
No, yeah, I'd love
So it's like
a
if I-
small batch.
I think it's a great whiskey for $30, and when something used to rival that with price and value, I guess you could say, as far as because it's the same amount of liquor in there,
Yeah.
same amount of juice, as you
Right,
call it.
750 milliliters, right.
But when it comes down to it, if I know that I put it out on the table and it's gonna be gone that night, and it's just because we're on a second bottle because we only had half a bottle, whatever it is. But it was like, do I really need to spend an extra $20 tonight? Like we've all had both, so
Right.
I think it's what you want to do.
I think it's I'm going to say one quick thing. I think it's very common now for a distillery to charge upwards of $10 a year. So if it's a 12-year bourbon, you charge $120. If it's a 10-year
insane.
bourbon, you charge $100. McKenna's $5 a year. If you think about that, so it's still
That's a
in
good
2019 terms,
perspective.
it's still a good deal.
What's like a Woodford, just out of curiosity?
I think it's $38, $34.
Well, I mean, how many years is something like
It's non-age stated, so I assume it's between probably 5 and 6 years for Woodford.
So you're saying $10 a bottle or $10 a year? I would say that's going to be basically that's why now your average bottle is about $40.
Oh, you see a lot of. So what a lot of people are doing now is they're buying sourced bourbon, bottling it under their own label, and they have to charge a premium because they probably paid a premium for said bottle.
That's right.
A lot of the people who are buying up the MGP, I think of Blom Brothers in Galena, Illinois. They charge $100 a bottle. It's fantastic juice, and it's 10 to 12 years old. And $100 a bottle, it's a bargain because it is just really, really good stuff.
I've heard good things about
But
it.
that's like, how much would that have been 2 years ago? 40, 50 bucks?
When we were at
probably.
we were at the grand opening for Burn over in Indy, and we had that Woodford chocolate malted something,
Yeah.
and that's like $45 a shot
Well, at Burn.
at Burn.
But I think it's
So
still 100.
Jake is doing really well.
I think,
Well,
I
he
think
works
it's
in the
still
humidor, so
120 or 130
He's doing
a bottle,
just
right?
fine.
Yeah. I mean, those Woodford Master Distiller,
How much
whatever.
is what we have, the Old Forester birthday bourbon? I don't know.
The Old Forester was about.
It was
My
75,
credit
I
card
thought.
was saying it was
75.
per shot,
It was
and
75.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then the Louis was a little bit more than that.
You
You
didn't
know
buy
what
that
I
one,
say?
though.
My financial advisor bought the Louis.
Your feet just went up.
I'm a little concerned.
Like I said, just, come to my house and drink it because it doesn't cost anything when you drink it over there. And then the
like
second thing
that.
I would say,
That's
when
a
in
fair
doubt,
price.
when in doubt, buy a Wild Turkey 101 because I was privy to some information where the most recent releases of Wild Turkey 101 are like 8+ year whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's a steal at $23.
Yeah. It's
And
a
it's-
classic wild turkey flavor.
It's classic Wild Turkey flavor, right? It's corn forward,
little heat.
little heat, and really though, it's got that just viscosity that Wild Turkey to me is known for being oily, good bourbon. Wild Turkey 101. That's the thing. Like I brought some nice bottles, whatever. I can get down
Whatever.
on some Wild Turkey 101. There's no qualms about it. I love it. Yes, please. When in doubt, and that's the other thing. That's a question I get a lot actually is, Bob, I go to Kroger and I want to buy something and they don't have Blanton sitting on the shelf and they don't have Weller Antique or, Elmer T. Lee, first bottle kill of the night. They don't have these allocated bourbons on the shelf. What do I buy? I always point them to one bourbon every single
Wild
time.
Turkey?
Russell's Reserve.
Russell's.
Reserve.
Oh, yeah.
10-year.
No, it's the red label. So the 10 year is the age stated, and there's a 6 year, but just the red label Russell's Reserve single barrel. Granted, I think now it's
single
like
barrel.
$55.
Yeah, but still.
But even that's right. He's got one right there.
It's a good bang for the
It
buck.
is.
That's
it
the
is
Father's
just-
Day, right?
I mean,
Or Father's Day pick you
And
got,
it's
Nate?
clear.
the Father's Day pick is so good too.
Very good.
I've been fortunate enough to try that. I'm telling you what, right now,
You just put it back
when
in his
doubt,
bag
buy
for the
turkey
record.
for $24 or Russell's Reserve for $55 or $60.
Yeah.
You can always find something good in the liquor store. Okay, Heaven Hill, I see that. People always ask me, like, what do you buy that's on the shelf? If Buffalo Trace isn't on the shelf for, what is it in Ohio, $26?
Yeah, it's 26.
It's a $27.40.
That's $26.
Yeah.
It's an incredible bottle for the money, and you're not going to find that every time though.
Not in Ohio.
Not in Ohio. And I'll tell you, Russell's Reserve and Wild Turkey 101. The other one that I would say is down in Bellevue, Kentucky, New Riff is putting out some 4-year-old bourbons.
Is that just their regular bourbon?
This their regular bourbon. I think it's $50 a bottle. 4 or 5 years
Better
old.
than some of the
$50.
newer stuff.
It is. It
Their
is
rye
very
is good.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I really like the rye.
Really good. New Riff.
Single barrel, I've had some good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The Cork and Bottle down in Kentucky has put out some really
that
amazing picks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they taste. I always say this tastes like an 8 or 9 year old, 8 to 10 year old bourbon.
Yeah.
And they're doing something really, really right. I think you're going to see in the next 5 years, New Riff is going to just. They've already exploded because, like we talk about cigars too, they have great packaging, and I think you're going to. And the juice speaks for itself, though. I think you're going to continue to see New Riff pull out the hits. It's going to be
New Riff really needs to, in my opinion, like you mentioned, the regular bourbon. I think it's good, but for $50, I'm not grabbing it. I'm not making sure that
$36.
It's a cool looking bottle.
That's what I was going to say. They need to, like, the rye, I think, matches the hype of the marketing. The bourbon, it's kind of like I'll buy it the first time because the
Right.
bottle looks awesome, and I
Right.
drank it, and I'm like, for $50, there's a lot of different options out there. I'm not going to make sure I have this in my bar every day of the week.
I think that's because it's still young, so you still get that corn forward,
Yeah.
and maybe cardboard flavor out of it. Not talking trash about New Riff. It's still really good bourbon for what it is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's not going to have the complexity that some 10-year-old bourbon has because it's just not that old yet. But what I'm
Right.
saying is, if we're doing this podcast in 5 years and it's 9 to 10-year-old juice, we're going to have a really, really more outstanding. I think I have a great opinion on it now. It's going to be an outstanding opinion of New Riff, when we're doing this podcast in 5 years.
Well, and again, with the hype that they have right now, you figure if they're going to keep getting better as a company also.
Right.
And they're going to keep employing better and better people.
That's right.
And they're just going to grow as an organization.
They're very passionate, too. When you go into
That's
the
what I've heard.
distillery, I mean, they love their product. They're a very, very small operation. They do a great job. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to plug New Riff. I like New Riff. I think they've when you go to a shelf, when you go to a
You
Kroger,
can plug all you want. I mean, just you're giving honest opinion. I mean,
yeah,
honestly,
I am.
That's
When
all
I go
it
to
is.
Kroger, it's going to be Russell's Reserve or New Riff or Wild Turkey 101. The other thing I'll tell you is Knob Creek, man, like
Solid every time.
the 120 proof bourbon. If you've ever had one of the 120 proof bourbon picks or one of the rye picks, they are just insanely good. And the other thing is, you can buy it. You could pay a lot more for it when someone else sources it and bottles it themselves, or you could just buy it from Jim Beam, buying it as Knob Creek.
Yeah.
You know, that's a part of it too.
We've talked about that before on here, is that when you hear like Jim Beam, you don't always think of, Booker's. You don't think of Knob Creek. You don't think of these other names. You're like,
Even Baker's at 7
Baker's.
years is really great.
But it's
bourbon.
like, yeah, I mean, the name. I mean, we've talked about that. It's the fact that it's like, Jim Beam, that's cheap, that's everyday whiskey and all that stuff. And it's like, what do you think about Knob Creek? Now that's good.
Yeah.
And you're like, do you know who makes that?
Well, and they're more
Knob Creek.
They're single barrels that they say is not really, it's better than what they're going to put in a batch, and they make it single barrels. I could tell you that
Bobby, what was the one we were talking about earlier on the way here? The white label Jim Beam.
yeah, I drink white label Jim Beam all day. I think it's like $12 or $13. And
You'll drink a lot of things, though.
Yes,
just
that's
in all
true.
fairness.
Not picky,
That's right.
for the record.
That's right. I don't I don't have any
You don't
ill
really,
feelings.
unless it's like you're trying whiskeys. If I'm like, hey, Bob, you want a drink? You're like, yeah, sure. That's about as far as the conversation goes
That's
when it's you
right.
and me hanging out.
I'll tell you though, and I really mean this though. I'm going back to Jim Beam for a second.
Yeah.
Some of the Knob Creek single barrels are now 14 to 15 years old. You're getting a 14 to 15-year-old Jim Beam single barrel 120 proof bottle at I think like $42.99 or something like that. It is incredible juice. We actually I've tasted some that tasted like straight raspberries. I mean, just really out there, delicious, deep, bold flavors. And that's what I am. I'm on the pursuit to find stuff I've never had before, and that just changes my world about a certain single barrel. And I think when we try, I know I'm partial to Willet, but I think when you try this 15-year Willet that I bought, you're going to see the depth.
And you're saying that's a sourced one?
That's sourced from Heaven Hill, yes.
Okay.
That's back when they were buying stock from Heaven Hill.
So let's go back to this Willet. So what are the two Willets that we got here? We got the 4 or 5 year rye.
This is a 5-year rye party source pick that came out about a year and a half ago. And you've got barrel number 8334 from Willet coming in at 116.2 proof.
And that's been aged for 15 years?
15 years in the barrel. 15 years in the barrel.
Wow.
And they've been buying from Heaven Hill for a while. I hope Drew doesn't mind me saying that. I think everybody knows. But they've also done a really great job doing that.
Is that Drew? Drew's
commenting
commenting and
right
said
now.
he
No,
minds that you said that.
No, the last comment I had was, love this Bob guy, and a lot of whiskey glasses behind it. That's Bobby
right.
Hirschman.
That's right. Salute to that, yeah.
I before we get down the bourbon trail, if you will, the whole lineup here, but the rabbit hole, as Bob called it.
How was the rabbit hole, by the way?
It's good. It's very good.
Yeah.
That was what? Yeah, what episode? That was
Rabbit
4
hole
episodes ago, I
high
think.
gold?
That was 2 weeks ago with Sean.
2 weeks ago with Sean, we did the rabbit hole. It was very good. I would definitely, and that was a hell of a podcast as well. The part 2 of that was very, very impactful.
It's intense, man.
Very impactful. Yeah. It choked me up even. So I want to get over just real quick transition here to the illegal tobacco.
Yes. Oh.
Spencer,
So-
what do you think of this? I mean, you guys have both kind of like said good things about it briefly, but Spencer,
So
what
I
do
was
you
wondering
think?
why you brought up the Bobby and the Cuban cigar piece. Is this supposed to mimic a
All right.
Cuban?
No, it's not supposed to mimic a Cuban. There is a Cuban tie here. So legal tobacco, you notice it's even spelled.
Who makes illegal tobacco?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that here.
Yes. Top secret for now, Spencer. Shut it.
Go ahead. No. All right. So illegal tobacco is part of the La Familia Robaina.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is
Sexy when you say it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's Hirochi. That's a 5th generation Cuban farmer. The family. Don Alejandro is his grandfather, who was 3rd generation, and he was kind of the face of Cuban tobacco during the Fidel era. And his picture, he passed away in 2010, I believe.
Oh, wow.
But his picture is everywhere in all the shops down there, all the lounges down in Havana, and a very, very famous individual in the Cuban tobacco world in general. Hirochi is really making a name for himself in the last several years, and we've had the HR on the podcast before, and that is his Nicaraguan effort, which is kind of a side project along with the La Corona factory, and that's going to be with a guy named Omar. But this one is a gentleman, I don't know if he's still watching, but I was communicating with earlier. Spencer Drake is a newer name. I don't know if you guys know that name. You do, Bob?
It's a great name.
Yeah. Spencer? Yeah. Spencer Drake is kind of a newer player in the industry. I don't know how long he's been in the industry, but I know his name is really getting out there. It was White Hat Distribution, and now it's the La Familia.
That's right.
And so it's interesting. You look on the band, and it does say 1845 on there, which is when the family in Cuba, that was fifth generation, that was when they got the land, the farm, and everything like that. So this is something that Spencer is doing. He has 3 blends under the Illegal Tobaco, I guess, just overall brand.
Great name, by the way.
Yeah, and
you said that.
Yeah, it is. And the as far as the packaging, the box is gorgeous. The bands are very nice. You have this one, this is the Habano, and quit holding hands, guys. And then you have the San Andreas and the not with me either. Yeah. Is he? Hey, fellas.
Hey, Spencer, is it a great name?
I was speaking about the Legal Tobacco as a great name for a cigar.
I know.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Spencer. But anyway, Spencer is Spencer Drake. He's been doing this. This is a new launch for him. And when I asked him, I said, is Hirochi involved in this at all? And he says, kind of. He said he's taught me a lot.
Is Hirochi the first or last name?
That's first name.
First name.
I gotta tell you,
Robaina is the last name. That's the family name. So that's a La Familia Robaina.
Right, Robaina, yeah.
And so I guess Hirochi hasn't had his hands on this project. His hands are on the HR project, which we do also carry in our shop, and it's blowing up. But with this one, Spencer's working with a couple of other individuals, and he basically, when I asked him, I said, "Can you break down the blend because I can't find it anywhere?"
Right.
I know it's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on here, and he says, "Well, we're not really releasing that." And he said, "Well, for your knowledge, though," and he sends me 3 more messages breaking down the blend.
Right.
And I'm not going to share it, but I will say exactly. I'm not going to share exactly what it is, but I will say that when he laid it out for me, it explained. I said, "Well, that's why it tastes so unique."
So when you say Ecuadorian Habana wrapper,
Habano, yeah, Habano's a seed, and it's from Ecuador. It's grown in Ecuador.
So it's a seed from Cuba or not? Is it just a coincidence name-wise?
No, I mean the lineage is there
So they bring the seed from Cuba to Ecuador
initially.
And theoretically, that's the same flavor that they were using.
That's a lot of them. So like the Criollo, there's a certain year for the Criollo. There's a certain year for the Corojo seed. Like all of these were Cuban seed at one point, and then through the farming efforts, you basically continue to repopulate and do all that.
Are there tens of seeds? Are there hundreds of seeds out there for cigars?
Are you talking about like as far as like varietals, if you will?
Yes.
I'm sure there's more, but when you come to tobacco, it's not as big of a number as you'd think as far as the majorly used ones.
I got to tell you, this cigar hits it checks all the
boxes
boxes for me.
I thought it would.
It actually, and it could be the placebo effect because we're talking about illegal tobacco, yada yada yada.
Not bad marketing.
It has a twang
Great
to
name.
it. It has a twang to it that's very similar because it's got a medium, a little over medium body,
Yeah.
and then there's this almost Cuban twang to it that I love, and I mean I could smoke four more of these.
This is an
tonight.
all-dayer for sure. You could have this.
That's what I like
this is
about
easy.
it.
I smoke fast,
Not easy, but delicious, consistent, isn't overpowering.
There's the first time I smoked this,
But it's got some flavor towards the back.
and the draw is just perfect.
the construction's good.
Yeah.
Very good. We just got in our first batch, and it's almost gone.
Oh.
And I'll say we've had a couple. I will say this, and Spencer, I mean, I'm fairly honest when I'm talking about cigars here. We've had a couple of wrapper issues, but it also came off the truck 2 days ago in the wintertime.
You got to let them rest.
You
got to
let them sit.
I got no issues with it.
No, I know, and I haven't either. But I've cut some of our customers, and we've had a couple like caps that break, which happens all the time. But I think it's the winter, and it needs to sit a little bit longer.
Sure. They gotta rest.
But I will
Cigars have to
say
rest.
is, I agree with you, Bob. With this cigar, it's interesting because I have these food flavors that I'm trying to place, and it's difficult. but there's a little bit of like a.
I get
like
that same iron twang that I get in a Cuban cigar, and this is something that, and I'm just saying this. Like, I can come buy this.
Yeah.
How many am I allowed to buy?
14.
We've got about a box and a half left.
Great, and I can buy.
And I'll let you know when we have more come in.
But
you
I
can buy
can
as
buy-
many as you want.
Okay,
You
good.
can buy a box.
Okay,
15% off until Christmas Eve,
That's
according
right.
to Nate.
That's right.
15% off. So no, but really though, I mean, this cigar has so many. I guess I would say positive points to it, and that's the thing about smoking a cigar. I have had so many cigars in the last 5 years that have not had good construction.
Yeah.
And they're too loose. It's always too loose of a draw. I never really have something I got a poke or anything like that.
Never
but
get anything that's plugged or anything like that?
Cuban cigars tend to be, there's not as much quality control there, and they tend to be plugged. But
Recently, in recent years, yes, absolutely.
they're kind of packed tighter is kind of or packed looser. They're not packed tight enough is what I would say on a lot of cigars I've had. But I mean, this thing it's smoking so well. Part of that is the romance with the cigar, right? Is it smoking well? Is
The
it burning
company.
well? Yeah, and it's a great cigar. And of course, I smoke fast, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But that's because I pay a lot of attention to the cigar, and I don't take a lot of time between, when I go back at it. So
You go full blow into it, which I
That's
like.
right. That's right.
Have you retrohaled that cigar yet?
Yeah, I did. I retrohaled it.
What do you think?
I loved it. It just gets everything that I'm looking for in a cigar, which is when you retrohale, you get all that kind of sharp angled flavor.
That's where I get a little
You have to
spice.
retrohale. If you're not retrohaling, I highly recommend doing it. It'll take you a few times to learn, but
All right, I'm not a cigar smoker as much as you
Get in
all,
there,
but
get in there.
so only been smoking cigars for 10-ish years. But
Noob.
how
That's
would
not
you
new at all.
How would you tell somebody to retrohale? What is the actual process of retrohaling?
It's very. I've tried to train a lot of people, and it's very difficult to do it because it's one of those things that I've yeah.
I could tell you an easy way to do it.
Go ahead.
Blow 85% of it out through your mouth and 15% of it through your nose as you close your tongue forward.
Yeah, but I've told people things like
And
that,
they can't pick it up.
and they're like they're doing it, and then they almost like hold their breath.
But you're not blowing it through your nose, correct?
You are.
You are.
So basically,
The last 10 or 15% of it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times for me anymore, it's I've gotten into the habit of I blow through my nose first. It's just the way.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
I
can't.
think you tried it.
And that's
I
what
think we
happens
have a
also.
first timer.
I did more of a 90-10
Long time
than
lurker,
85-15.
first time caller.
A lot of flavors.
Yeah. So, Bob, what I it's interesting because my retrohale a lot of times I get what you're saying. That's the true way to do it because you get that little essence at the end of it.
Do you do it on every puff?
I cannot not retrohale.
I retrohale every 7 to 10 times.
I've gotten to the point, and I'll
Because
show
I
you
smoke
while you
fast.
talk. Bob, watch it. Keep talking.
No,
Okay.
no.
No, I will
this
talk.
is good for the audio portion.
Yeah, perfect.
Damn, that was hot.
Oh, you
That was
retrohale
sexy.
first and
Yeah.
then release.
Yeah.
I release and then retrohale.
You always
I'm gonna try
release.
that. Yeah.
Gotta release, Bobby.
So that's funny. So I also wanted to say, as we're talking about retrohaling and we're talking about palate and maximizing flavor, Spencer just poured the 15-year Willet.
Oh, you're ahead of the class.
Yeah, he's ahead of the curve. So I haven't tried it yet, but I wanted to.
This one's a bourbon, not the rye, correct?
This is the.
You wanted to do the Weller next.
Oh, pass the ball. Yeah, I think I'm being told to get close to the microphone. What
Nate,
he's saying
have you
is-
ever had this?
Well, you got to try
go,
it.
come
What
on.
are we talking about?
Yeah, the audio basically runs itself with
Bob,
a new board.
Bob, you wanted to do the Weller next, correct or no?
We kind of jumped ahead. We're going to go to the Weller next. We had the Weller. Now we're going to the Willet.
Spencer got
It's
excited.
Spencer's
Four
fault.
Roses small batch will be next for
Hey, I'm
Hey,
fine
you know
with
what?
that.
Don't hate on that.
I would
don't,
not hate on
like,
that.
Don't hate on that. But the reality of it is, this is a bourbon that, for me, this is where I live.
guys won't like
Willet is kind of my
Do you
wheelhouse.
have Willet in your glass?
I do have Willet in my
Okay,
glass right now.
I think that the rye is better than the bourbon, Bobby.
Then this bourbon right here,
Yes.
you are insane. I would like to say to Drew Coolsbean, this
you,
guy has no
pour
idea
me
what
a
he's
glass
talking
there,
about. Drew, if you're watching,
We're out. You're upset about this.
I'm upset. To say that is malarkey, brouhaha, and look, there you go. Right. So
Thank you.
I'll be the judge of that.
Of what?
Malarkey. Bob will be the
Malarkey
judge
and,
of Malarkey.
Spencer.
The Joe Biden tour. Malarkey.
Yeah, I get offensive. No, I will say though that Willet.
Speaking of which, we did have a comment.
About the Biden malarkey
Not
comment?
Biden, but your podcast is more interesting than the debate going on in Washington, D.C. That was nice.
Yeah, that's why I brought in Biden. Gotta
bring in.
I don't get political, but I do get defensive about your claim
And about
that,
politics, you get
that the
super
5-year
defensive.
Willet Rye,
As
which is
if
their
you
own stuff,
need-
which is great.
As
Hold
if
on,
you need, no, exactly. I was going to say as if you need it. Go on.
They are
Yeah.
completely different, Bobby.
they're completely different.
Let
but
me
I mean,
let me know when you got a 15-year rye.
I could make that happen.
Ah.
So their 5-year rye is mouth punch rye. It's right in your face. I love that. Their 15-year bourbon is oaked and matured and complex. And I mean, to say that is
Right on. Everyone has their own opinion.
Insanity.
That comes
There's
with the
no
heat late.
wrong answers except for when you disagree with Bob, for the record.
All the viewers and listeners
mean,
will learn that here.
Do you taste the oaky back end of this Willet bourbon?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the part that I think is okay. I really like the rye.
So you're
It's-
saying,
yeah.
wait. Are you saying so? When I took my first sip after drinking the rare breed, it was a soft open. It was very smooth. It was almost
That's the age that it
it
has.
was
on
like
it.
a fruit almost to
Yeah.
it, and Bob, you can probably say what the fruit flavor is, but I'm saying I get a little of that fruitiness up front, and then that's what I say. It was like a really like a slow. It was slow to get to the finish. And that's where I got the oaky. That's where I got the.
But the finish
you got
is
the oaky
still
off, though,
lingering. You know,
after
finish
rare
is
breed.
no, I got at the end. Like at the end, the finish on this one, it actually started heating up a little bit.
Yeah.
With when you said oaky, it's kind of like that, but it's like a spiced oak.
Yes, that's exactly. And me, you know, actually, here's another thing. There are a lot of people, and I am the exception, not the rule. There are a lot of people that talk about how a bourbon. You grab some, yeah, grab some.
Not that one.
Yeah, grab the best one. And so there are a lot of people that talk about a bourbon.
It's $1.
I want to make sure I talk about this for a second because this is a controversial
All right,
point.
Go on.
There's a lot of people that talk about bourbons that are over oaked. People say that Pappy 23 is over oaked. People say that Elijah Craig 18 is over oaked.
Are you saying too much oak flavor?
Too much oak flavor.
Okay.
You know what I say? You can't have enough oak flavor.
You want to lick
in
that
my
barrel?
opinion. Yes,
don't you?
I want to taste all that. Yes.
How many barrels have you cuddled up to at night?
I can't disclose.
So between the McDonald's Beanie Baby and the bottles of Pappy 13,
23.
23.
23.
Yeah.
23. And the reason why people would say that 23 is over oaked is simply because it's low proof. And so a lot more of the oak comes through, but I still invite it. I'm an oak chaser, and that is not a popular. That's not a popular opinion. I chase.
Let me
oak.
ask you this. While we're on the whiskey part of it here is when you have a 23-year-old bottle
Yes.
that no one can get, right? When I say no one can get, people can get it. I'm saying that you can't walk into a store and just buy it off the shelf.
Right.
Nowadays, in a lot of states, including Ohio, you have to win it in a lottery, right? So it's kind of a cool thing that they're letting people have the opportunity to buy it. And then on the secondary market, it's atrocious what they're asking
It's crazy.
Bobby's not as familiar with the secondary market as
He's
you
very
think.
familiar with it. What my question, though, for both of you actually, is I'll ask you first, Spencer, because you are getting more and more into the bourbons and whiskeys in general, and also the cigars. When you crack a bottle, before you even know the price, but I say this is a 23-year-old whiskey, what are you actually walking into that experience expecting?
Can I go?
No.
Spencer, go. Just don't put it on ice.
So it makes a great Manhattan
My God.
with extra cherry. The more not the good cherries, the regular red syrup.
A little bit of Sprite.
Sprite or 7-Up. You know, I'm not picky.
I'm about to relinquish my microphone and you know
and
get
for
up
those
from the
that say
table.
British Fresh, any water will do when you mix it.
Well's the best.
Columbus has good water.
All right, no, wait, Spencer.
So I think
Serious,
a lot.
though,
So
serious,
in my
though. What do you
opinion,
think?
so I've been very fortunate to have some friends like Bobby and friends like you all who have let me try some things that I should not be trying with my palate. But I think just like this, and I'll go more towards the wine world, is that some of it's perception versus reality.
That's true.
So one thing that I would really enjoy on this and other things is when I've done blind taste tests, because that's, I think, when you get the true bet. But if you are...
I agree with that. I actually really, really strongly agree
Yeah.
with that, is put a Pappy 23 with like a Buffalo Trace on the table and do that blind taste test.
Yeah, so that's when you are expecting greatness, you your palate is ready for it. You're excited. It's experience. It's who you're with.
Yeah.
Things along those
Hey,
lines.
you're celebrating.
But I've been fortunate to have some Pappy that is fine and it's good, but there are some $30 bottles, some $50 bottles that I would prefer in a blind taste test. But in the experience of it, you are enjoying it. Like when we've had some good things, when we had the birthday bourbon and we've had, the Louis and stuff like that,
right.
Just from being around it and the experience and the pour and the anticipation of it, it's all about who you're with. And the thing that I really like about Bobby and the thing I really like about Steve and Nate and Dustin and everyone else is that they're willing to share. Bobby does have some stuff that he's collecting, but for the most part, he wants to enjoy.
Can't wait to open it with you.
So to have a 15-year Willet is insane.
Yeah.
To be fortunate enough to have the Weller, foolproof is nuts, man. I've never even seen that before, man. So it's my anticipation, who I'm having it with. I can say I've had it, and I know what it's been, and I know kind of the notes that I'm looking for. But again, I think it's more just like a cigar. You can have the greatest cigar in the world if you're on a beach in, Miami, and it could be a $3 cigar. Maybe not $3, but around that.
Well, yeah, Cubans on the beach are $3 a cigar.
Well,
I'll tell you that right now.
It's funny you say that because when I was on, I'm going to go on a total tangent here.
No, answer the question before you tangent.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
The question,
when you haven't had, so the first time you had this, right? And you're saying that people are saying the Pappy 23 is over oaked, like it's predominantly oak. Which was a similar thing when I first had Johnny Blue, that I was like, it's like liquid smoke.
Yeah. And
I was like, it's good, but like I'm not going to pay $200 and some a bottle for liquid smoke. But to you, like when people are saying that, what do you walk into? Since you're more developed as far as probably palate, first of all, because you're getting the passion, but also you have this capability now to you've tried a lot of stuff.
I've tried everything.
So so when you first had a Pappy 23. What do you walk into that? Because I think that's something that people they get a shot of it, like, oh man, this is amazing. The Cognac, the Louis that we had at Burn, Bob, I'm not kidding. We your friend
Chris
bought it a shot for like $200 some, and
they
having a good
poured
time.
it into a beautiful glass,
gorgeous presentation. Yeah, platters out and everything. But then he takes a sip of it and he passes it to Spencer. He's like, yeah, pass it down. And I don't remember who it was actually, because there was about 5 of us that took a sip out of it, and it was like, "What'd you think?" Yeah, it's pretty smooth. That was the comment, and I was like, for $200, that's actually
it better light you up in some way, shape, or form, right?
Like it's good that it's smooth. It better not be not good.
It was the experience of it, though. To spend $200 for any type of liquid is crazy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but the experience, everyone, they had the presentation.
Oh, we had fun with it,
and you had fun with it, and that was the point of it.
Flavor-wise, Bob, what do you go into that?
Again, I have to say, I have to requote what I said. You're right. Pappy 23 is low proof.
When you say low proof, what's the proof on it?
I think it's in the 94, 96 proof. I can't remember what it is. It's in the mid-90s, much like Blanton's, but it's a lot older. So instead of tasting that corn forward Blanton's taste, which is sweet and caramely,
peanutty.
No, it's not peanutty.
Can be,
but it actually by single barrel it could be.
Thank you.
Okay, people would complain that Pappy 23 doesn't really give them that mouth punch, doesn't really invade their palate like they hope other things would, and as a byproduct they taste the oak.
Yeah,
and I told you guys I'm the exception, not the rule. I chase oak. I love it, and that's an unpopular opinion. But for me, I'd rather have higher proof and oak like this.
Yeah.
But for me, I love how especially on this is super oaky on the finish.
You gotta say what it is.
And the 15-year Willet, super oaky on the finish, and the finish lasts after you take a sip. It lasts like 45 seconds.
That I will give you for sure.
At least.
And that's how I judge a bourbon: does it have a finish, or does it have the proverbial legs to it, like people talk about with wine, and does it stand up? And I think that people would say that. Man, I'll tell you, people have this. I'll go into a rabbit hole for a second. People talk about Weller Antique and Old Rip Van Winkle 10 and Van Winkle Lot B and the Pappy 15 that's 107 proof. And, they can complain about it all they want, but it's really complex whiskey. And as it gets a little older, at 20 and 23 years, they proof it down and the oak takes over and it's more drinkable. It's crushable. There's this term called crushable. A crushable whiskey is something that you could drink for hours on end.
It's dangerous, first of all.
It's dangerous. Yeah, it's very dangerous. And the same point is you still get some complexity and a lot of oak out of it. And you'll see maybe people talking about it on the iPad, is I chase oak and I'm okay with that because I don't need to conform to what everybody else says. I just drink what I like. And the thing about me is I'm willing to crack any bottle that I have with you. I don't care.
Well, you're willing to try anything, too.
Why has the Weller gone up in value as much as it has?
Well, so what I know, and Bobby probably know a little bit better, but like the Weller Antique 107, for example, other states were already getting it. And to Bob's point earlier, is that when you've got a great bourbon like that has some age to it, that is tougher to find, especially in Ohio, it was a steal. That was part of the whole thing, is that you're getting a bottle like that for $28.
It is.
And then you have some no name coming out of, and I'm not saying bad things about any of this stuff, but it's like you have a no name out of some part of Ohio coming out with their new bourbon, and it's on the shelf sitting next to it for like $48.
Or like a Burning River or something like that.
Well,
just a cool.
Yeah, I mean, you have the marketing, and to Bob's point too, when you're sourcing
Burning
it.
Chair, the black
Burning
bottle.
Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Which I
probably
didn't,
4 or 5 year old whiskey.
Which I didn't care for a whole lot.
Right,
but
really
so that's
expensive.
the point, is that do you make it a steal, or there's also, and I'll introduce this before, and I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes in part one. I know you will. So, but the thing is that I look at it as the liquor stores have to respond, and or in Ohio, the state has to respond.
That's right.
The way you battle, and it's temporary, because then you have to see where it goes, like the flex goes from there. But when people are buying Weller Antique 107 at $28 and they're selling it for $55, $65, $70 a bottle, and they're making more money than anyone else involved is making, that's a problem. For me, it's a problem.
But I think so. Buffalo Trace, who makes Weller Antique, is probably charging more for it, and the state's charging more for it. I think one of the things about Ohio that's nice is prices are controlled. I think that's an amazing thing.
There's a lot of
because
benefit
I've
from
walked into plenty of liquor stores, not in Ohio, seen an old Rip Van Winkle 10 on the shelf, and be like, I'll take it. And they say it's $5.99, which is $200 more than secondary. I'm like, never mind.
Yeah.
The state of Ohio has actually done a really good job of working with Buffalo Trace to bring Weller Antique and Weller Special Reserve as a mainstay. Now, Weller Antique still sells out every Saturday when these Kroger's and Giant Eagles have these releases, but it's more available than ever. In fact, Buffalo Trace has picked maybe a handful of states in the United States to have the opportunity to make it a mainstay, because Buffalo Trace wants to compete with Maker's Mark and Woodford. And you know what? I'll tell you, here's what I've seen, and this is the honest to God truth. Now that Weller Antique is $50 and a little more available than it was 12 months ago, I have seen so many people shun it and talk crap about it and say this isn't good stuff. And I think that's like the reverse placebo effect. Weller Antique is still a great bottle. In fact, there's some in the house. I'll drink some. I love the stuff. Even at $50 a bottle, it's a great wheated bourbon. And I'll tell you right now, I think that when something becomes more available, people start to talk more shit about it and or care less about it.
And you know what? Behind that's the rarity of it.
More for me. That's more for me, because I'll drink Weller Antique any day of the week. And the state of Ohio wanted to, in collaboration with Mark Brown from Buffalo Trace, has wanted to bring it in as a mainstay to compete in Ohio. They've done a really good job of that. And a lot of the Buffalo Trace line. And in fact, we've seen every Saturday there's E.H. Taylor Small Batch, Blanton's, Weller Antique sitting at these stores, and they do kind of like these releases. And I'll tell you another thing. You can't beat some of these bourbons for the price. Again, I was a snob about it initially, but I realized when I tasted it over Halloween, because I got a bottle to have at Halloween for some of my guests, E.H. Taylor Single Barrel is a phenomenal whiskey. It
is lights out.
It's lights out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, 100 proof, great whiskey, single barrel, for $55 or whatever it is in Ohio, you can't beat it because it's just it checks all the boxes. So I think that people get. I would say that the rabbit hole that we don't want to go down is availability of the bottle spikes the rarity and the people that want it. And now that Weller Antique is more available, people hate on it more. It's still the same juice that it was a year ago when you were running to Kroger at lunch because you heard that it was they got a case
or
and you were
camping
so
out
happy.
at 7:30 in the morning.
Out. And you got a bottle of it and you were so psyched about it. Now you're not psyched about it. But here's the thing, and this is always my thing: the juice hasn't changed.
What I'll
cork
say,
top,
and
the foil.
What I'll say about Antique 107, and that was the whole thing, is I love the fact that it was so good at less than 30 in Ohio.
What's better than it for $50?
Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace $25 and it's 90 proof.
Right. You can buy but it depends on the shopper first of all, right? But what I'll say about that, what's better than it at $50? It's not better or worse. It's now you're with a different competition.
Yeah, you're in a different league.
So again,
rare breed is what, $42? $43.99. Rare breed, Wild Turkey rare breed, even the current bottling is $43.
Yeah.
That's really hard to beat.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good whiskeys at 40, but
Right.
again, it just keeps going up, and I think it's based on the secondary market.
That's right.
That if anyone's going to get money for something, it should be the creators. First of all, it's the people that are manufacturing it. So the fact that, and I'm not saying that because there's wholesale markup and keystone, all this stuff, however that works, but the consumer. The whole idea was the consumer enjoys it. You buy it because you want to enjoy it.
Well, that's a whole nother rabbit hole is
right. And
if you buy a bottle of bourbon, crack that shit, drink that shit.
So why don't they just sell Weller 107 for $80?
I think eventually they will because people will still pay $80 for it.
Well, the thing is, people are paying $80 for it today.
Secondary.
Right. That's what my point is. That people are already paying for it.
It's a
like
really
me,
good
though.
whiskey.
People like me though, I'll want to have it, but it won't be something that I always go to. Like I have what's left, like about a quarter
because
of a bottle.
Because it's hard to get, or because
it's $50 now.
Well, because you want to save it.
Well, because it's $50 now. So well, I want to savor it. I like to enjoy it, but it's like before it was great. So if like Weller Antique was on the shelf for $28 every day of the week, it would be something like if I had someone that never had bourbon before, I'd be like, yeah, just go ahead, have some of this red stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right, that's right.
Now it's I mentioned to Liz the other day, and we have a friend that works at Fido also, and he came over and I was like, what haven't you had? And he's like, well, I haven't had the Antique 107, and I was like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And then the next time he was over, he grabbed a pour of it, and I'm looking at it, I was like, I don't want to spend another $50 to get another bottle. First of all, I don't know if I can find another bottle now. So now it's the $50, $80, whatever the cost is, but it's like now it's like I don't know when I'll find another bottle. I had two not too long ago.
If he will appreciate as much as you will appreciate it.
Well, first,
no, because I think Steve, you'd share anything with anybody.
I would.
I think just what you're talking about is the viability of finding it again, and is it worth it? And then to really talk about what you were saying initially, at $25, there's nothing comparable.
Yeah.
At $50, buy rare breed for $43.99.
Yeah.
Or Russell Single Barrel the Single Barrel's I think 55 plus tax, the red label that you had over there. But same thing, same idea is that it's in a different league, and what else can you get in that price point, which is just good basic being a consumer type shopping.
Right.
Crane, let me ask you a random question. If I gave you a $100 gift card to,
Thank you.
let's say Kroger,
I'll take one too.
what are you getting?
Steaks, no. Oh, you're talking about
Do they have a cigar selection there?
Black Cherry White Claw.
Whoa.
no. That's a
let's
soft
not
All right,
talk
here we go.
we going variety pack? What's
we're
the problem?
No, because everybody knows that black cherry and raspberry and ruby red grapefruit.
I like the lime.
Nope.
You
it's
freaking
not a
would,
no.
bro.
No, to no.
We mean to no.
To quote Randy Jackson, it's a no for me, dog.
Well, I know if we're splitting a variety pack,
I know which one you're getting. Yeah, that's right.
which is exactly what Liz does. She
enjoy.
doesn't like the
Perfect.
lime either. I was like, all right, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I'll take
If I had $100, it depends on what they have. That's the age
they
that we're in
have
right
May I go?
Hold on for un
May I
momento.
go?
If they have it's $100 and they have what's little harder to get on, little harder stuff to get on the shelf. They have the blends. They have the
now. Today, what I do, based on what I have in my bar, So, like, Bob was like, "Oh, you don't drink bourbon anymore," because I was like, "I don't really have a whole lot." The
you
thing
drink it.
is,
There
And I
are
respect that.
1,400 bottles in the
there's
garage.
not $1,400 or bottles. For me anymore, it's like when I go to a liquor store and if we're doing something for the podcast, I want to try something new. That's part of it. The frequency that I am doing this at this point, for me, it's a budget thing. So for me, if I'm going in there, I'm going to buy probably 3 $30-some bottles that I know I like. Eagle Rare is on the shelf. I'll buy at least one Eagle
Love
Rare.
Eagle Rare.
If
Low proof, but good.
but I like some low proof stuff.
Yeah,
to your
there's
point.
a time and place for everything.
Bobby doesn't
Well,
like the low
to your
proof.
point, and when
High proof.
right and I like high proof stuff. The thing I like about this high proof stuff, to go on that side thing, and it's I like drinking this stuff neat.
Of course.
What Jake would always say is that the reason he likes the higher proof stuff is because he can then, if he wants to, add a little bit of water, which I get that. I don't think it's a bad thing to put out a 40% bottle that they think tastes good. It's like a chef making a dish for you,
Right.
And then all you do is add a bunch of salt,
Right.
to it. It's kind of like, well, why'd you do that?
But I think the average consumer, and that's changed over the last 3
More
or 4
flavor.
years.
More flavor.
The average consumer wanted a smooth whiskey, and now they want the not real. I wouldn't call it bite. They want the full effect.
Well, it's the same thing with the cigars. We've talked about
That's
that. Is
right.
that, when it was the Cuban and the Dominican, and then it was a little bit of like the Honduran market,
Yep.
and then Nicaragua.
Nicaraguan blew
and
up.
then, there was a period in the 2000s, really, with even the Opus at one time, Fuente Opus X.
That's right.
Was a very full-bodied cigar. Today, it's maybe medium plus, in my opinion.
Still a good cigar,
It's
though,
a
bro.
very good cigar.
It's not a JD and Antonio.
No, but now, you're packing these cigars with Ligero, which is at the top of the plant, that gives it more strength. It's a fuller strength cigar, and that's where the market had gone for a while.
Yeah.
What I'm noticing, though,
People will pay a little more for more power, for
Right.
more oomph.
I've said it with the bourbon thing because I've said it with the cigar thing, and bourbon right now is a couple steps behind, I think, in community-wise and
Yeah.
people what they're buying than the cigars. I'm seeing a lot more people, myself included, that I love the full-bodied stuff. But on a daily basis, I'm smoking more medium, maybe medium full. I'm smoking more mild to medium stuff because I'm enjoying the different flavors.
So how many cigars do you smoke a week?
On average, about 2 to 3 a day.
Okay, and me, I smoke 2 to 3 a week, so I'm going to go for
Same thing, right?
those spikes in the flavor and the strength,
Right.
Because I'm maybe smoking 2 to 3 cigars a week now, and I want that experience to
get
have
it.
that roller coaster of
But like what you're smoking right now, you seem to really enjoy, and it's medium.
This has gotten better
Oh,
and deeper as it's gotten towards
once
the
you
end.
got
for
a
me.
3/4 of an inch in, it just turned into a dynamite cigar. And
Totally different.
And but the thing is, we can always appreciate the nuances or
Yeah.
just the palate type flavors and tones that it has, because cigars are still a little bit different in my opinion. Now, what I would say is I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually rewind back to the $100 thing.
Explain that, though, about the cigars. Let's stay on the cigars for just one moment.
Okay.
When you say it's different for me,
This cigar goes well with anything, for the record.
I think it would.
Yeah, I think that there's body, there's flavor, and strength. I think there's like 3 different things, quite frankly.
And construction.
Well, 4 things. Construction is a given. I'm only going to smoke cigars that have good construction.
Yeah.
That's a deal breaker for me, much like a pet peeve. My biggest pet peeves are littering and construction of a cigar. Outside of
Those are
that,
your top 2?
You literally just threw that trash on the ground.
no, I didn't. It's right here. I have it right here. For me, at least, what I would say is I want a strong cigar or a cigar with great flavor. And,
Yeah.
and just that delivers a nice, healthy, thick smoke, which this has in spades. Do you have any more?
Yeah, I would
come on,
strongly.
let's do another one of these.
And I'm not a
no,
cigar
that's about the
aficionado like
shop.
y'all,
Can
but
I come
would,
by the shop tomorrow and buy the rest of them?
Yes,
This,
you
this is
can.
going to sell out right away, and I don't normally push your cigars, but this is a
Thank you for
phenomenal cigar.
Thanks for not pushing ourselves.
The BS Bronze, which is coming out in.
You got a silver? You got a silver over there? Let me get some.
I got a silver.
I'm done. I mean, I'm done
You got
with
a
this. I
Monte
don't want to
Cristo.
be
You
done
got a
with
Monte
this.
Cristo right there for part 2.
Are we going to go right here?
Yeah,
then?
yeah,
Do
yeah.
I have to wait? I don't want to
Yeah.
be the guy. I mean, I'm probably going to smoke 3 when you guys smoke 1.5.
Get after it.
But
Go on,
you know,
Spencer.
back to the other
Or
thing.
Bob.
So I think that there's a big
to Bob.
thing to be said for. Yes, I chase oak in bourbon. I chase complexity in bourbon. I chase complexity in cigars. This is a complex cigar.
Yeah.
I don't care about the body at that point. Oh, we're going to the rye. Let's do the rye. Let's
do the rye then,
punch
yeah.
our mouths with the rye. The other thing I'm going to get in while you guys are pouring is $100 Kroger gift card to the Kroger liquor store. I'm going to lay it down right now. I am buying and you guys, this is the thing that you guys overlooked.
$100.
I'm buying a Booker's. First off, that's going to take $60 or $70.
Yeah, so you're running out.
I'm running out. But you know what? Booker's is one of the most underrated bourbons. Another Jim Beam product.
Not underrated.
Well, Booker's though.
Well, but it's on the shelf, so people ignore it.
No, we did me and you, we did the Booker's tasting at the Meridian. So
It was
I don't know
great.
if you guys ever get those emails or things like that. So
was it just the two of you, like for dinner? Like,
no. So it was a group
thing.
of
That's
10
the
to
thing.
12
Yeah.
people.
Gentleman's dinner.
So
No,
we will
you're
do
in
that
gentlemen's
before the
dinner.
end of the year. So the Meridian does a tasting probably about every month,
Yeah.
and they do 3 or
Well,
4
it's the Soul
bourbons.
at the Joseph on
Excuse
High.
me, the Soul at the Joseph at High,
It's
which is
okay,
at
he's
the Meridian.
inebriated.
In Columbus,
They
Ohio, for
do
those of you that are
several
not in
different
Columbus.
picks there, and we did Booker's, we did Little Book,
Yep.
and maybe 1 or 2 other things.
Yeah. And the Booker's just has that. You know
Which
me,
Booker's was it?
I said this earlier. I chase peanut. I think that Heaven Hill has that peanutty flavor, which also the Old Ezra has.
Which Booker's was it, Bobby?
I think it was actually Bluegill, if I'm not mistaken.
I haven't had that one.
It's it's one of the best.
So
And-
for those of you guys that don't know, Booker's is a Jim Beam product, and it has it's a single barrel, or no, or is it just
I think
or
it's
it's a
batch.
blend.
It's
Small batch.
batch. But
Got some heat, though.
But they do
they
different.
select honey barrels to do it with.
Right, so there's different iterations of it.
That's right. And
Yeah.
they
Good on a cold night like this, for the record.
We've
That's
we've
right.
had it on the podcast
With a
twice
really
now.
strong cigar.
2 different ones, right? No, Booker's. Yeah.
And you know what I'll tell you about
3 times Dustin says.
What I'll tell you
Yeah,
about
we had-
Booker's is, yes, for my $100, it's $66 or whatever it is. Then, you know me, I'm going to go for like a Wild Turkey 101 to even it out. And then if I have a few bucks more, I'm going to buy some Black Cherry
White
White
Claw,
Claws. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. He got it.
You're goddamn right you are. Goddamn right
Do
you
that,
are.
actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a 200 milliliter of
Black
like,
Cherry and
Ancient
Booker's
Age.
is a delicious mixed drink that Bobby has.
No,
Delicious.
I tend to not mix it. But I can appreciate that too. You know, I have made some aged Manhattans. You can get that little 5 liter barrel or whatever it is that you can buy on Amazon
Yeah,
or
yeah,
wherever. And I make aged drinks in there. I make an aged Manhattan. I make an old fashioned. I make a Vieux Carré, which is a great drink involving cognac and rye.
Never had that.
I need to bring some next time.
The night is young.
The night is young. It's
not that
I will
young.
bring it next time. Actually, we should do a show where I bring
On cocktails?
barrel-aged drinks that I've
Buca Ray
made.
show.
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah, that would really be amazing because I'll tell you what right now, some of the there's actually a bar in the Columbus vicinity. Am I allowed to plug people?
What would you call that?
Do whatever
bar?
you want, man.
Like, what would be a good name for a bourbon bar, Bob?
Prohibition. No. So
go ahead. So
shout
yeah.
out to Elton.
Elton.
They make some great
Prohibition is in Powell, Ohio.
Powell, where I live.
Powell,
Yep.
Ohio. So
Are
just
you saying
north of
Powell or Pow?
Powell.
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 Powell,
Yeah.
Ohio.
Pow.
You got to remember, there are people that are all over listening.
That's
So
amazing. So if you ever make your way, 2 promises.
North
If you're not from Columbus and you make your way to Columbus, come to the Northwest Side, go to Prohibition and Powell, then message me on Facebook. Come to my house. I live 2 miles away. I'm gonna take you through the gauntlet of bourbon at my house because that's the thing.
2 great bourbon bars
That's
in
right.
Powell.
2 great bourbon bars. in
Prohibition
Powell.
and
My
Bob
house
Brayer's
is Powell.
Bob Brayer Bourbon Barrel Proof Buffet. And
B6, vitamin B6. And you know the thing is that no, that's fine. Yeah.
Hey, take the night off.
But the
How
thing
many
is
espressos did you have?
a lot.
14.
Yeah, I'm jacked up on caffeine today.
All right.
He's got so many points at Starbucks, it's nuts.
That's right. And
You got
so,
a free drink in the same visit.
That's right. I do.
a lot of Splenda.
But that's the thing, you know, a mixed drink. You know, I am not. I am of the adage that drink it how you like it. If you want to
Absolutely.
take this bottle, not this bottle, and this bottle, and put ice in it, go ahead and do your thing.
Will you judge the person for putting
No,
ice in
no,
it?
I won't because you know what?
Some
There are
people like it.
times-
Some people like it cold.
Or a couple drops of water can really
Right.
open
It
up
changes it, right?
a glass of bourbon.
That's right.
That's so true.
Nice pinky out there. Which ones have we tried? We had the Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
We had the foolproof. We can revisit again.
Well, hang on. With I want to do this as we kind of close out part 1 here.
Sure.
Okay.
You're on the rye right now. You're on
I'm
the
on the
Willet
rye.
5-year rye.
Oh, well, I guess
Yeah.
I need to do that too.
You need to get on that. So what I want to talk about, though, and you won't be able to pair it with the rye there, but how the Illegal Tobaco Habano with the rare breed, what do you guys think of the pairing?
I mean, it's...
I thought the rare breed, and I know I use this term.
We started there, everyone.
I know I
keep
use
in
this
mind,
term
yeah.
a little too much, but the rare breed tasted like butterscotch to me. That was, for me, it was phenomenal. Now, I haven't had the one that you guys had on the podcast a week or two ago, but I don't know if that's the dust or what it is. But the rare breed, I thought, was phenomenal. Butterscotch, caramel, things along those lines. But again, I think it's, we have had some misses with the cigars, and I don't know if you intentionally try to pair things up or not, but this cigar can go with any type of bourbon that we have. But it was, Bobby always likes to start off with low proof and go too high, and I'm assuming that's because you don't want to kill your palate.
Right. I want your palate to taste the lowest proof and not be killed by the highest proof, and then work its way on up.
So is that the same way you would suggest people smoke? If they're having more than one cigar, would you suggest
I think the classic,
fuller body and then kind of wind down, or would you rather suggest kind of mild and then go higher?
So I used to do the whole thing, and I've talked about it before, is that I used to do it where you start with a mild one in the morning with like a cup of coffee,
Right.
and then you go
Again,
medium, and then
that's
you
right.
not the normal.
But
Most
there's a
people
word.
don't have a
There's a
morning
phrase
cigar.
here. There's a phrase here called palate fatigue, right? And that's a
So
real
there is.
thing.
So you know this, both you guys do, and I know Bob knows maybe a little bit better. But it was interesting. I did this for a long time, where you go mild to fuller bodied.
That's right.
You end the evening with full bodied.
Do you still do that, or
Well,
have you found?
I don't think
I'm
so.
all over the board now because it was actually Pete Johnson from Tatuaje Cigars.
He works at the Tinderbox, if I'm not
He does
mistaken.
not. He's not. No. Pete Johnson is
Shout out to Pete. How
Yeah.
you doing, man?
It was
Pete
good.
Johnson.
I'm glad he's doing well because he was originally he was working for you the first time I met him.
He
If I
was
recall.
not.
You were thinking of the
thought
wrong
that.
person, but
Yes,
I'll
thought
tell you,
that.
I
All
actually joined. The funny thing is, I'm gonna go on a tangent for a second. I'm a Tatuaje guy. I'm a Nicaraguan guy.
He speaks highly of you.
I actually joined the Saints and Sinners Club this year.
Right.
How
And
many
I-
tattoos do you have?
I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of needles and blood.
Well,
But
lower back, you won't even see it.
Tatuaje is one of those things where he has managed to not fall off over a period of years.
No.
Sometimes the cigar brands fall off over
Yeah.
years. He has got a devout following. I joined Saints and Sinners for the first time.
What is
after-
that?
So it's a club where you get, when you initially join, you pay some money, but you get this extreme pack of swag and cigars and
Yeah.
a cutter and a
When
lighter.
you say
and a
some money, we talking $10? We
couple
talking
$100, couple
For a
$100,
year.
but it
For a year.
kills the value. Yeah,
Yeah, you get
what
get
you
swag.
get for your couple $100.
You also
is
have an
insane.
opportunity to buy certain cigars as well.
and certain bottles of bourbon,
Now,
like maybe
well,
Willet
and-
Rye.
So he's pairing his cigars with bourbon?
Yes,
a big
Pete is
Willet
a
guy.
good friend of. Pete Johnson is a good friend of Drew Coulsveen
That's right.
at Willet, and they've done some Willet picks that I have tasted of the rye, because Pete's a rye guy.
Yep.
And I'm telling you,
I like
this
the rye.
stuff is phenomenal. It is it's a cool club. I never thought I'd join it. I joined it. I was fortunate enough to be in it, and I
Yeah.
love it. And the cigars that I got, I'm telling you, some of these cigars
I
that
know.
you get
Yeah.
are just some of the limited releases and stuff like that. And Pete's been doing the Halloween series for 10 years now, 12 years now.
Almost 13 now.
Yeah, it's been crazy to see how he is not.
Good documentary, by the way, by him. I did watch that.
Hand rolled. Yep, absolutely.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. And
very
there's-
well done.
Actually, can I plug another documentary I have no affiliation with?
You are literally have affiliations with
That's
all
right.
these.
That's right. If you like bourbon and you want to watch a documentary that'll just bring you to maybe just a beautiful ending or maybe even tears, there's a documentary called Neat,
very good one.
N-E-A-T, and it is a great documentary. They actually showcase Freddie Johnson from Buffalo Trace, and they talk about the stories. And they
Sweetheart
go
of a man.
Oh, it's
Is that
just
the gentleman who does the tour?
Yeah.
he does the tours. My first time at Buffalo Trace like 4 years ago was with Freddie. It was the craziest thing in the world. And then the Neat documentary comes out 2 years ago, and it was just the coolest thing to see him again.
Yeah.
I don't have any affiliation, but it's a great thing to watch.
Do you want to say- no, remember, we got a mic for you, buddy. Hang on.
No. Say it. Just speak into it.
Yeah.
So if you ever go on the tour at Buffalo Trace, which I had the luxury of doing, not this past
Where is
summer, but
Buffalo
the summer
Trace?
Before Frankfort, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet Freddie after our tour, and they were closing up shop.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I had like the group, my friends that I was with, they took all of my stuff because I was just, in awe. You wanted to meet him because I'd seen the documentary and I fell in love with it.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic. But Dr. McGillicuddy's root beer, which they do as part of the tasting,
Right.
they renamed to Freddy's.
That's really neat.
What is that? Dustin, explain that to me.
Is that how? That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you see it, they actually have his face on the six-packs that you can buy only at the distillery.
Yeah, my wife went nuts when she tried that at the distillery. It was insane.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I did it for my fiance as well, and she loved it too.
That's
fantastic.
awesome.
So good.
So, before your tangent, Pete Johnson
Yes.
told me that a lot of those guys now, him and Dan Welsh, a couple other guys, a lot of people in the My Father
New Havana
family, right? Yeah. They like to end their night, at least the time. This was like 3 years ago I talked to him about this, and he was saying that they like to end the evening with a lighter cigar.
I would, man, because your palate's got to be killed by the end of the night. It just has to be. You probably just can't handle it. It might just knock you on your butt.
Well, so
It depends.
you called it,
depends,
Bob,
though.
you called it palate fatigue.
Yes.
The issue is I think you're also still beating it up. I compare it to a cool down at the end of a workout.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so when you're doing
work
this,
out?
I work out. When you're
You do? What's your name?
it's a bulky sweater.
Stevie buys and tries.
Anyways, so like it's the same thing with
He does
this.
leg day too.
I do.
Does he?
He does.
Yeah. All right. So with the whiskey thing, it's the same. At the end of the night, if you went down to, Jesus, if you went down to maybe a 80 proof after all this, and you're ending the night. Now, I'm not saying it. If you had 4 drinks and you have 2 80 proofs after it, the first one you probably won't taste much of.
But you can still appreciate it depending on what it is.
By the second glass, hopefully at that point,
You've adjusted
You're
a little
getting
bit.
more. Yeah, you're getting more
But
of
your
that.
tongue
So that's your
is
cool
still
down.
kind of numb on the surface from all the high proof. I think it works better with cigar.
I don't think enough people try it the other way. Is my point.
Well, do we? I mean, we should do it as a. We should try Buffalo Trace at the end of the night
Yeah.
and see if we can still quote unquote taste it. We should do that,
Bobby.
Well, or we'll do one of the Mictors. The Mictors is low proof.
Well, you're right.
No, I'm
none
saying
of
he
these
brought
are low
all-
proof.
He brought all
That's
these.
gone.
He didn't have anything in the garage.
The lowest proof is
All
gone.
right.
We can plow through the Weller Full Proof if we
Okay.
want.
We've got to call part 1. This was amazing.
Loved it.
I mean,
Same time next week.
You want to do it tomorrow?
no. I'll be at the shop
After hours.
after hours.
Is that before or after I come by all those illegal tobacco?
I'll still be working after.
15% off.
Anyways, I want to thank. I never even got to, when we get into it on part 2, is how it compared to, or this paired with the other whiskeys, the cigar, because that's something we didn't talk about. But with this illegal tobacco, I want to say if Spencer's still listening, or if he comes back and listens, I want to thank you for really getting out there and doing some interesting stuff. I mean, this cigar.
Well done, sir. Well done.
I love this cigar. I really do.
It's definitely three thumbs up. And if you ever really, I actually encourage, and I know you're trying
4, 5,
to keep it.
6, 18.
The whole garage loves it. My point is, Spencer, I will say that when you actually shared the blend with me, it's very unique, and maybe you wait till people smoke it and tell them, because when you actually you hear what they're using and the countries they're using for this tobacco beyond just the Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, it then clicked. Then I'm starting to – I couldn't put my finger on it.
But it's not. It's the construction too.
The construction's there.
You put your finger on it.
Well, and so Adrian, who I think is the other blender of this one, it's this particular blend is a collaboration between Spencer and Adrian. But what I'm saying is that not you, Spencer Drake. When I read the blend, it actually kind of clicked to me, because I was like, I can't place some of these flavors because it is a very unique blend. And when you read it on paper, I get why they're doing it. If you read it on paper, you might walk away from it and never like this cigar.
How many blends are there?
There's 3 blends under the illegal tobacco, and Spencer says never telling. So I'm not going to tell anyone. But I'll say this, is that when you smoke it, it's going to be very unique, and there's a reason for that. And it's not that they're using really obscure tobacco. It's just the fact that the combo they put together, I can't think of another cigar that has the same blend, which is it's tough to do this day and age in the cigar market.
That's
because
right.
most of the time you try something unique and it doesn't work because they've already been doing this for so long that someone's tried it and they never put it out.
Right. Well,
because
and
it didn't
that's
taste
true.
right.
A lot of these experimental lots never get put to production.
That's right. They're sitting somewhere, and some people are too scared to put it out. So Spencer and Adrian, if I'm not mistaken, Adrian's the other gentleman that's involved in this. So thank you guys for putting this out. Thank you Tinderbox at Easton for sponsoring us with this cigar. This is amazing.
Has been incredible.
And then Bobby with these whiskeys so far.
Thank you.
And I know you can talk for days, and we want to get you back on this podcast. Honestly,
Shy, you got to get him out of his box.
we got him out of his shell. But no, I mean, I love this. I'm looking forward to dipping into a couple of the other ones as we get into the topic of taking risks.
Dessert is going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Also, thank you to Altus USA. We have a Monte Cristo Espada that Bobby's about to light up here.
I can't wait.
Have you ever had that one?
No, I can't wait to get into it.
I know you've had this one before, Spencer.
I have, but again, I like the classics, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Good. And then also BS Cigar Company, thank you for the support. We're looking forward to as we go into the new year. Just for you that are listening to part 1 on audio, what we're going to do is we're not going to have a podcast obviously on Christmas Day, but we're going to do there's a lot of podcasts out there that I've actually said, we're taking the rest of the year off.
You're not going to do a Santa. You're not going to do a Santa Claus cast.
We had one.
Dustin Bovey would make a great Santa, for the record.
That's right. Nice beard.
We've had that. I know we've had that, but we're going to do a podcast on Thursday the 26th as far as the live feed. So it'll be Thursday. We're back to that for 1 week, and then we're going to do a New Year's Day, not New Year's Eve, but on the Wednesday we're going to do New Year's evening. So on the 1st we'll be doing a podcast as well, and that'll be episode 100.
Wow!
How do I get that invite?
You're welcome.
If you
anytime.
like Bob,
you can subscribe on iTunes.
Yeah, that's right. Give it a thumbs up.
All right, so that's where I'll leave it. Is that obviously we talked about Patreon on this part of it. Please check that out, and if you are part of the first batch of people as we get into 2020, we're going to be working on some thank you gifts for everyone out there.
How crazy is this 2020, man?
I can't. I'm getting old. You're
already there.
That's right.
And so thank you very much, Nate, Dustin, for your guys' support every week, being a part of the team and everything like that. Everyone out there listening to the audio, and if you're watching on Facebook Live currently, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll stay live, and then we're going to roll into part 2. And if you're listening to the audio, check out so it'd be 98.2. Thank you very much, Bob Brayer, Spencer Lappin. Thank you guys very much for being here and for sharing your Wednesday night with us. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those of you guys on Facebook, we're saving right now.
Save it.
I have nothing else.
Close it because it's getting really cold in here.
Oh, but then you can't breathe, you said.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're live on Facebook, yeah.
It's cold.
They voted to impeach Trump?
Well, the Senate.
For those of you on Facebook Live. All right, take a bathroom break if you need to. We're going to keep rolling through this. Don't knock over anything.
The rye is so much better than the bourbon.
I do want to, as we... you all right there?
I'm just trying to... I got arms here.
All three of them.
Close that garage.
Upstairs or downstairs.
Yeah, perfect. Nate, you can close the garage if you want to while you're up. I want to say this is Sean, who was on the episode two episodes ago, he's on the podcast, and you said that they did vote to impeach Trump. Yeah, so that was the funny thing is there are a lot of people out there, and I'm not going to get into politics, but there are a lot of people out there that they have this mindset that they see all these alerts, and I think the media is misconstruing this, that they think that tomorrow Trump is not a president. So this is the beginning of a process, and it's going to take a long time. So not going to get into politics or anything like that, but that's interesting that happened. What are you guys drinking tonight? While these guys went to the bathroom, what are you guys drinking tonight? What are you smoking? The studio audience, you're smoking what?
We got into your level 3 over there.
Level 3.
Maybe 4.
Oh, you're drinking some of that. I thought you said you're smoking some of ours.
Oh.
I did.
What are you smoking over there? The illegal?
Yes, that is awesome cigar.
We come up to the mic, Sean, and say. I don't know if Adrian and Spencer are still listening at this point, and if you guys are listening and you're part of the bourbon and the cigar party, you're part of one of the groups that we share too, I I do want to say this podcast is a little different. The first part is definitely about the whiskey and cigars. Tonight was a bit more about whiskey just because we have a guest on like Bob Brayer, who is basically an absolute just knowledge base for that type of an industry as a consumer and more. Yeah, and he's absolute ball of fire. So, but Sean, you smoked the Illegal Tobaco Habano. What did you think about that?
Yes, it was very good. Now, Bob mentioned something about, like, with the Cuban cigars, there's an iron taste to it or something like that.
Yeah, a little mineral iron taste.
Yeah, I definitely taste that. It's got a smooth finish, I think, and I don't know. I'll buy it again when it's available, but I really enjoyed it.
I think it's going to go fast. It already has. We've already blown through almost 2 boxes.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's been in a handful of days. So, Avi's drinking 1792. Too cold to smoke tonight. Not going to go out to the she shed tonight.
Jeez.
So, but the second part of this, for those of you that are still watching with the bourbon and the whiskey, or bourbon whiskey, and then the cigar part of it, second part's going to be about taking risks. This is where we get into more of the interview part of it. So we're basically 2 podcasts in one, and I've been debating on whether or not we do literally 2 podcasts. But I think for the time being, we're going to split it up on the audio and keep the video and everything else one continuous stream. So if you want to do that, I'm going to start looking at the minute marks to be able to say this is where part 2 starts. So if you check it out on YouTube, if you're listening on YouTube, if you tune in, we'll put it on there. I'll go back so you can kind of break it apart yourself, come back and listen and scrub ahead. But tonight's going to be about taking risks. This is where we go on a life topic, which is what the bourbon community is about, what the cigar community has always been about. That's how Bob and I met each other, was through the cigar industry, and yeah, we don't hang out as much anymore. You know, we life takes you in different paths. You've got kids. You know, I remember when it was you and Nicole were not married yet. I mean, it's just things happen, and then
known each other for a long time.
Known each other for a long time, and it's interesting that when you come back to it, all you got to do sometimes is you can invite someone over to the house, but there's similar hobbies that brought you together. And that's kind of what we do in the second part of it is talking about the life topic, which is what we've had a lot of traction on that. We've had a lot of people that are interested in what's said, because like the last 2 episodes with Q last episode, we had Sean 2 episodes ago, and even when we're talking about, I've got a strength and conditioning coach coming in January. I've got the Rolling Barrel Tour is coming back on.
Yeah.
They're going to be coming back on in the first week of February. We've got a handful of people that we're going to be doing different things. It's not always this big life struggle story. I love those. There's also stuff like this where you have 3 people along with the Facebook community that's listening live that can contribute to a conversation. You know, Cutter? Got it right here. So
no, I think you're right there. I think this is going to sound crazy, but my interest is in people that have passion about something. And I think that's important to give a damn, right? Like, to give a damn is a virtue anymore this day and age.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be something that we touch base with. Strength and conditioning coach, who is it?
Jake
his name's
Sanders.
Caleb.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
His name's Caleb. So AJ Kazmerzak, who's been on the show several times,
that's right.
It's a connection from him, and so we've done some fitness ones, we've done some health ones, we've done some like when we had AJ and Angelo. The first time they were on, we were talking about like the supplement industry, that part of the nutrition and health thing. So this is going to be interesting. It's not just going to be about strength and conditioning, but the perspective there is going to be very interesting on what we talk about. So we'll have a life topic about that, but it always starts with sitting down, checking out a new cigar, checking out some whiskey, and getting to know everyone and talking about that. So you have the review part of it, and then we get into life, which is exactly how a typical night goes.
That's right.
With some whiskey and cigars.
Is there honestly anything better than sharing a cigar and whiskey with your friends?
No.
I mean, there's.
Have you had sex, Bob?
With your friends.
Yes.
Yes.
And you know what? I'll take a little water too to cleanse my palate if that's cool. The thing for me though is, it's a social thing, right? Like, I like. I'll do one too. I like to I like cigars.
Was there any doubt in my
Yeah,
mind that was
that's
going to
good.
go all over me?
I like cigars.
See me preparing.
I like
Not a chance in
whiskey.
hell any of that.
I like more
Do you have a
so
smaller glass we can pour this into?
the friends that I've made through it all. I think that's really, really important.
I agree.
Do you have a lighter that I could bogue?
There's one right there.
Okay.
Did you
Steve,
have a bottle of water at some point?
Yeah, I'm not using that. That's for the Uber ride home.
Steve, have you tried that rye yet?
Yeah, I've got it in my glass.
Phenomenal.
Oh my gosh!
Am I wrong? Is it better than the bourbon?
So that is Willet's
Is
own
it?
distillate.
Hold
Calm
on.
down,
Is
everyone.
it better than the bourbon?
I get this peppermint flavor that is just
So
absolutely
much
amazing.
better than the bourbon, and anyone else who
All
doesn't
right.
think
It's
that.
got a different profile than the
Please
bourbon.
excuse
the bourbon's
Spencer
absolutely
from the
amazing,
podcast.
But the Willet, holy cow, that is an
The Willet
absolutely amazing rye.
Yes, it's the best rye.
Yes,
you'll
it's
ever
a mouth punch rye. Yes, all
don't
all
even
good
know if
rye.
it's a mouth punch.
Yeah, get in there. All good ryes are mouth punch ryes. We're
Yeah.
killing bottles tonight. What can I tell you?
We appreciate that. Bobby Hirschman says, I'm losing the show. We're in the break, and I expect that when I was promoting the show is that we have Bob Brayer, who we used to call him Wild Card. Well, no, before he was Bobby Bins,
Bobby
before
Bottle
the bourbon
Service. Bobby
craze,
Bottle Service.
10, 12 years ago, he was the Wild Card. All right.
Don't get me in trouble on that one.
All right. I do have to control.
Wristwatch-
I'm gonna
wristwatch
start clicking off
purchases.
mics.
I'm
Hang
gonna
on,
start
hang on,
doing a
hang on.
charcuterie board.
We're blowing up their speakers. Hang on a second.
Good.
Let's get into the audio.
Good.
Let me introduce. What are you guys drinking right now? Just water?
I just actually poured the cognac.
Okay.
Did you really? You're ahead of the game. I just poured the Willet
just
rye.
Skipped
This is
over
their
the Weller.
own distillate. This is amazing stuff. It is mouth punch rye, and it is great.
All right. We're going to go into part 2.
So we're on the black cherry white.
Yes.
What?
Hold on.
I
From
just
the audience, the 15-year
Stop it.
bourbon is better. You are right. Thank you for stating facts. Please keep stating those facts.
take a breath, chew some gum, whatever. No, don't mute their mics. Go ahead, and we'll start the part 2 here.
I don't need the mic.
Yeah, because
Welcome to Whiskey. Jesus.
Prick.
I'll delete that part. All right,
Prick.
ready? Stop.
Prick.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday again, everyone. This is Bourbon BS Podcast, episode 98.2. We're getting into part 2 here. Before we get into it, because these guys are very eager to continue talking, and by eager, I mean starting to have some alcohol in their system, which I'm
Arguments.
really enjoying.
You're starting to have some other
And I want to thank our sponsors for part 2. We have Tinderbox at Easton. These guys have lit up the Monte Cristo Espada, which
great
is
cigar,
from
yeah.
Altadis USA.
Can you walk me through a little of the cigar?
We will get there, yeah. Tinderbox at Easton provided our first cigar, which was the Illegal Tobaco, which was a fantastic cigar. Listen to part 1 to hear a bit about that cigar. And also BS Cigar Company for the continued support. So we appreciate the sponsors. We appreciate everyone out there listening. Also want to introduce everyone that's listening to part 2 on the audio that we do have a Patreon page. Spencer had a great question in the part 1 about what do people get for being a part of the Patreon community. Basically, our goal there is to be kind of self-sufficient as far as and self-sustaining, where we're not necessarily constantly putting money into this podcast to bring have our night out, honestly, but also to not have to do this to provide entertainment, to provide information, to provide the community and everything like that. It's something that we appreciate the community and hope that people want to continue to contribute. So we do have a handful of patrons so far. Going forward in 2020, I'm working on getting to the point where we're going to have some thank you gifts for everyone getting involved. So, getting into the part 2, this is Taking Risks. Tonight we have Spencer Lappin, who has been on the show several times. He was on recently, and then we also have Bob Brayer, who has been on once before, years ago, different format back then, and we're happy to have him on. Part 1, Bob shared a ton of whiskey knowledge, and I appreciate that. He also is sharing.
I'm a nerd.
You're not only sharing your knowledge, but you're sharing your passion. And your whiskey.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? I mean,
Exactly.
we want to I said this before earlier, we want to have great times, share great pours, smoke great cigars, and have great conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's really all about.
And I'll agree with that. And that's what this is all about. So tonight we are part 2. We're talking about taking risks. This is a topic that when we posted it, we have a community page called Bourbon BS community page on Facebook. We're almost at 500 members in just a short period of time.
That's great, man.
It's very
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the conversation. That whole page is basically it's a kind of a supplemental page to the Bourbon BS podcast page.
That's right.
This is something where everyone that's involved in the community can continue the conversation about cigars, about whiskey, and also about life topics. And I've had some fun with it.
And the thing I like about that page is it's not necessarily a showy page. It's not people
No.
bragging and showing, hey, I got this, you didn't get this. It's people saying, here's what I'm having this evening. Hope you all have a good evening. And it's definitely people are like, hey, I haven't had that. What does that taste like? Things
Yeah.
along those lines. I definitely think it's more of a community page versus a judgy page. It doesn't necessarily have to do as much with people showing that they have something that other people can't have.
That's
It's
right.
more community versus more. I think bragging would be the right word.
There's a certain level of brotherhood to it.
There's a brotherhood. There's a sisterhood.
Inclusivity.
Well, what I like about our
right.
page, and I'm not going to, I share to a lot of cigar and whiskey pages along with other pages when we're broadcasting.
Any ones you'd suggest?
Well, we had Stogies on Ice. I wore a T-shirt. That's another similar page where it's just...
That's a good name.
It's a nice name, and people are just sharing their picks. I also share to, like, Ohio bourbon lovers. I also share to other cigar ones. I actually got a comment or a message, actually, from RTS Fellowship, which is
Yeah.
another big cigar page. And he personally, one of the admins, Audie, he messaged me during the podcast, and he said... Hey, just want to let you know that we're getting a lot of people trying to promote their business and their shows on the page, and we're going through it, so I had to hold back your post tonight. And so I messaged him while you guys were talking on part one, and I said, absolutely understand. It's unfortunate, but I get it. Hopefully you have a chance to listen to the show that this isn't like, yeah, we're sponsored by the shop that I manage,
Right.
but we're not trying to. I'm not
That's
trying to
such
sell
a little
things.
part of it, right?
Yeah,
You know?
it's like there's an opportunity to get the cigar that we're reviewing, but it's a cigar review, it's a whiskey
That's
review,
right.
and then it's topics. So, and I knew that's going to be a part of it as people. I've seen a lot more Facebook Live videos from cigar shops since we started going live.
Have you, though?
I absolutely have that are sharing to the similar groups.
That's great, man.
And I think that's great, but at the same point in time, like, you don't really plug the tinderbox all that much.
No, but and I'm just saying, like, but I get where they're coming from the Facebook page. That's why we created our own community, because and I've invited a lot of people that I've become friends with on other pages
But I think
to
that, like,
the community page.
content, discussion about cigars, discussion about whiskey, information,
Yeah.
education. There's so much more to it,
Well, there's a whiskey group here, and I'll start it with that. Is there was a whiskey group, and I'm not going to mention the name on Facebook, that I was personally invited to in person. When I say that personally, it was in person, and then I found out later that I was actually kicked out of the group, and I didn't even realize it because I wasn't as active. There's so many groups out there that I'm not the one that posts like what's in my trunk that day or what I hauled or look at my finds. And I like those because I actually learn.
That's when you hold the
right.
bottle. Yeah.
I know what it is, Bobby. I know exactly what that is, buddy.
I learn a lot from those things, and so just because I'm not contributing that way, but so this bourbon group, Bob, apparently had kicked me out because all I was trying to do was promote my podcast, and it's like, once again, we're almost 2 years into it. I'm not making any money off.
You're
this.
making millions, though, so that's why you're.
No, I'm not making any money.
No.
This is something where I
There's enough pieces of the pie for everybody.
What I
agree.
tried to explain through someone else that was still a part of the group, because they were actually getting confronted about it, was that the fact that it's like we're not just posting pictures of stuff. Every week we are talking about a cigar. We're talking about a whiskey. We're actually doing more on the podcast with that portion of it. And then we're also looking at, this is a community page, so
That's right.
why don't you guys fucking get together and talk about other things
right.
than just like what you bought that day down in Kentucky or in Texas? Like, there's all aspects. So that's-
what you got a bottle? So what you got a box of
No, I
cigars?
think-
Did you open it? Did you share it?
Yeah, what do you think?
Did you have some fun with your friends with it?
What do you
I mean,
think?
it's not complex, right? Like, again, I know we said this on the first segment, but
Yeah.
I don't buy the bourbon so that I can show you what I got. I want to share it with you. Same with the cigars, and same with that cigar we smoked initially. The
Illegal Tobacco, yeah.
was amazing. And I'm telling you right now, this Monty is it's a great cigar.
Yeah. See, I figured you'd like that one too. That's the Monte Cristo
Did
Espada.
you pick these because you knew
Yeah.
that we? All right.
So that's the Espada. I didn't know what we were drinking because I again we didn't talk about it. I figured you'd bring some bottles, but I didn't actually take it for granted. So we had some bottles, but not knowing what we were going to be drinking tonight. It was something that I wanted to pick 2 medium body cigars. The Monte Cristo Espada is
medium body, but smoke for days. I mean, this is just. Awesome.
It's all Plasencia tobacco. They're manufacturing it for Monte Cristo with the maestros of Monte Cristo's company, but it's all through Plasencia. So taking risks. I want to talk about with this topic, kind of introduce. There's a lot of areas in life that you can take risks.
Sure.
I'm not even talking about there's a nightly thing, like we talk about drinking a lot of times. You guys both Ubered here tonight.
Yeah, we did.
That when people talk about surface level taking risks, it's something like driving home after you've been drinking.
Yes.
It's talking to someone you probably shouldn't be talking to when you have prior commitment, whether it be a job or a relationship, and you are taking a risk in that moment. When I think about taking risk with you, Bob, being on, and Spencer as well, I think about 2 things, and I'm not going to limit either of you guys to this, but when I had both of you guys on tonight, I think about the things in my life, because I'm bad at taking risks.
Really?
Yeah. I am like you said earlier, Bob, on part 1, you're a creature of habit. I'm one that I'm very much, I don't want to say I'm comfortable, but sometimes it is a debilitating comfort level that I don't want to move on, even though I think there might be something else out there when it comes to a job. That was my whole thing with when I was at 2 Men in a Truck. It was just like I
remember those days.
Yeah,
I was with you during those days.
We had a lot of heart-to-hearts.
Jay Gilbert.
Jay Gilbert. Yeah, that was our first gentleman's dinner. But it was one that it's almost like a deer in the headlights type of a thing. Taking risks is, for me, a lot of times it's a fear of change. It's a fear of the unknown. When you're talking about relationships, it's very difficult. I think about, Spencer and I have both been married and divorced. And going into a marriage, sometimes you get cold feet, but coming out of a marriage, a lot of times, even if you have some major issues that are causing that, or any relationship, you're going to have this point where you are not really sure if this is the right move. There's a big risk, is the rest of your life. Bob, I think of you, with the ventures that you've been involved with, and both of you, feel free to share or not share some of the things I'm touching on, and also expand upon it. But Bob, I think about with you a lot of times is the business side of it. You too, Spencer. Yeah. But with Bob, I think from our friendship and having you on, talking about taking risks, is it worth it type of a thing? You've financially and also from a time consumption level. You've made some choices since I've known you in the last decade or so that even when I was looking at it, I was like, I have all the faith in the world that Bob Brayer is going to do well at this because of his passion level of whatever he does. But there's a huge risk. And I'm not making that exclusive, like I said.
No,
that's
fair. That's fair.
You're not experts on the panel.
I think the nice part about this panel with the 3 of us, and we've known each other for 10-ish years. Bobby was in my wedding. I was at Bobby's wedding. If it goes that route, Stevie, I hope I'll be invited to yours. Open bar during dinner would be nice this time around. Just throwing that out. But the way when I heard the topic was taking risk. I think we got 3 different levels of people taking risks. I do agree that, Steve, in general, that you're a little bit more conservative. I'm probably more in the middle, and Bobby's probably more of the risk taker. So
cowboy.
Cowboy. But I think we got 3 different levels of people who take risks. Again, when Bobby and I took the Uber over here, it was interesting because he was like, "Are we going to the same house?" I go, "No, we're not going to the same house, but it's in the same vicinity." Where the house is.
Same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood.
It's a street
so
over.
I think that you're more on the conservative level. I'm more on the middle level. And Bobby, I think, is a calculated high-risk taker. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where all 3 of our minds go. And, does the big risk get the reward? And all of us have been burned on, a variety of different levels. Right. And all of us have succeeded on a variety of different levels and kind of where that goes. Steve, the way I look at you, and like I said, we've known each other 10-ish years.
Right.
And it is.
Has it really been that long?
With
I guess
Spencer?
it really has been. We've been.
You and I were like 12 years.
I know.
Yeah.
And I moved to Columbus maybe 10-ish years ago, and I met you when
Do you
were
know most
leaving
of the people that are on your show this long?
Not all. No.
That's. I mean, if you think about it, we've all known each other for a long time.
Yeah, over a decade.
over
amazing.
a decade. But doing this podcast, it's a calculated risk.
That's
But
right.
you
That's
chose to take the lead. Now, Bobby's in a couple different business ventures, and they, some of them have done exceptionally well, and some of them haven't done as well. But overall, he's done. Bobby, I'm as proud of you as any of my friends.
Thanks,
with
man.
the
I
success
second
you've
that. I
had with your
second
life,
that.
with
Yeah.
the success you've had, with your wife, and with your two, gorgeous boys and things like that. But it'll be interesting to see kind of where this conversation goes.
Yeah.
Because I think we got 3 different levels of risk takers, and we're all doing well in our own different ways.
Correct.
But the way
That's
that Bobby
right.
thinks is very different than the way that I think, very different than the way you think, and I think we all can learn something from each other.
That's right. It's so interesting that I feel like I'm gonna get emotional. I don't know.
I love that.
The past 2 have been pretty much that way. So
That'll be interesting.
I
Can I get some whiskey?
yes. Try the Willet Rye.
whenever
Spencer
Crane
says
gets
it's the best whiskey. in the
whenever
bunch.
Crane gets emotional, pass the whiskey.
The smoke's getting in my
What's the
eyes.
hyper?
Onions. So much happening. No, I feel like the person that I never measured up and didn't have a lot to lose, so I could risk it all.
Really? That's the foundation.
When I
of
met
it.
Bobby said he was an artist. Bobby
That's right.
still
He
thinks
was
of
an
himself
Yeah,
as an artist.
I actually have a degree in art, fine
An
art.
artist at heart, an artist in action. But we've had talks when we both lived in shitty apartments that I am an artist, but I'm going to figure out a way, and I'll use the risk thing as far as fiscal risk, is Bobby has figured out a way through financial opportunities to take risk and also to get rewards from it.
Let me bring this up, Bob, and I hope you don't mind this, right? So I remember riding in your car.
Caddy?
No. Yeah, I think it was the CTS, I think. Anyways,
The first car
We're-
I ever bought and had a payment on.
we were driving down. Yeah, so this is going back 12 years, and you feel free to share your story. I want to kind of
Sure,
focus on
no,
Bob a little
that's
bit
good.
here. But here's what I remember. Bob's larger than life kind of individual. If you listen to part 1, you realize that already. But
Shy, some might never say.
But when I remember that, I don't know why this memory stands out in my mind. But we're driving down the road, and he had a lot of passions at that time. I think you were more into like art, and then also, but like when it came to things like in the realm of like whiskeys and tangible items, it was watches at the time.
Yeah. I was
So it was
a big
watches
watch
at
guy.
the
Cars as well.
Yeah.
Cars, but he wasn't there. He
Car
liked
parts.
cars.
I like
Car
to
parts.
work with my hands. I like mechanical
So
things. Yeah.
we're
Yeah, great
sitting
hands.
there, we're talking about it, and then so you flash back. It's we're in our late 20s, mid to late 20s,
God, man.
and we were talking about finances, just an honest conversation.
Yeah.
A couple 20-some-year-olds, and you were telling me about how, and I don't know if it was, I think if I recall correctly, it's a long time ago, but like your dad had kind of taught you that it's like you can use some finances that aren't necessarily yours. And I'm not even talking about what people might be thinking, because you've been very successful as of the last several years. No, you have. In many ways, not just financially. But
Family, too.
that's what I'm saying, not just financially. But at the time, it was you were talking about credit card transfers, balance transfers, and how you can I can do these things. I can buy a watch. I can wear it for a while, put it on a credit card. I can make the payments, but at a certain level, all these credit cards are offering balance transfers with 0% interest. So basically, I can do this to a strategy where I'm not. Do you remember this conversation at all?
Well, so it's 2 parts, actually.
Do you remember that? First
Yes,
of all,
I do. The first part is, so what it actually relates to, I want to, and this is a decade ago.
That's what I'm saying. But I remember that mentality was aggressive.
So the quick 1-minute story is,
If this lasts a minute,
no,
you owe
it's
me.
60 seconds or less. I was in college.
Your 60 seconds?
I was 4 years through college.
Right.
Pause it.
And my father came up to me, to my house, and cut me off. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, because,
Right.
when you're 22 years old, you don't really understand it. And he's like, son, has it been fun? you've had a great run through college. I'm like, yeah, Dad, it's been great. And he said, great. One of the things I want to remind you of is I'm only paying for 4 years of your school.
Yeah.
And the entitled young kid I was like, Dad, that's not fair. Oh,
I want to become a doctor in art.
yeah, that's as fair as it gets. And so I had to go out on my own. He cut me off. I cried. I couldn't get student aid. I had to go get student loans. I had to put them on credit cards and pay $800 a month to pay for the college that I was trying to get through because I was taking 11 credit hours, having the greatest time of my life, and I had to buckle down and learn the reality of things.
Yeah,
I think
life.
That's more of what it was.
Well,
And-
yeah, I don't want to make I'm not trying to come across that you were like hustling the system or anything like that, and you were like just going up to your eyeballs in debt. I was saying that I remember back to that, knowing you now, is that you had this mentality where it's like, a lot of people when I started that conversation, I feel like there was something that like look at like investments, look at the realty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you get into like the
That's right.
buying houses, a lot of times it's not necessarily with your own capital. Like you can work a system to a point that at the end of the tunnel, the goal is
Yeah, and
that
I
you're
used
not
to
going
have
to have to do it
investments
anymore.
in watches to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's what that was my point.
But
and
the
where have you
starting
gone
point
from there
was,
is my point.
No one's going to do it for me, and I've got to do it myself. And there's a market for everything. There's actually a market for bourbon.
Right.
There's a market for cars. There's a market for watches, all that stuff. For me, though, it was really about being on my own and having no safety net and having to realize that like I had to rely on myself.
And no
to do
capital.
It. No capital either. And when I was fortunate enough to meet a guy who was kind of my capital investor, I said, I don't own it, you own it. I'll work hard enough, but I want to own some of it. And we're going to do this together, and I'm not going to stop. And that was around the same time, right? If you remember,
When you got into the head hunting or the it was head hunting.
we started the travel nursing business, and
Right. Yeah, it was around that time. Yeah.
But my parents, I guess the beginning of that was my parents cut me off, and I had to learn to stop being an idiot and start taking things into my own hands and accountability, and that it was all on my shoulders. It was a lot of that area. I mean, break from the script, break from whatever. You and I remember that we were locked arms as friends, and you had just come into the scene. I mean,
Right.
that's, I guess, going back to 5 minutes ago. This is a really, I mean, this is these three people up here right now. It's a really long withstanding relationship, and we understand where everyone's come from. And I was an art student, but I used my creativity to, I guess, figure
That's a
things
very
out.
good point.
Because
Use
I'm
your
a creative
creativity to advance in the corporate world
person, and or build my own things.
and build your own.
Which is where you're at now.
You took a calculated risk to, not to get too inside baseball, to leave a successful company and have a successful job, and you took a calculated risk and bet on yourself to build your own business under another company that you took from 0 employees to X amount of employees.
Yes, and I think the you know, I've got my iPhone right here. Not gonna lie, I have a list of things I want to say.
They
it's good,
they are a sponsor.
Thank
Apple.
you,
Thank you, Apple.
Thank you, Apple. We
Steve
appreciate
Jobs.
the millions. One of the things I would say, and again, I don't want to go too deep in this because it's not about me.
No,
But
that's
I think-
why you're on the show.
But with taking
While
taking
you're on the
risks,
show,
the
we
word
learn
that
from
comes
each
to
other.
mind is with taking risks is the first word that comes to my mind is courage.
Okay.
And if I can be really, I mean, this is going to be a really vulnerable point for me, but I come from a family of CPAs, lawyers, and consultants, and I thought, like, well, what do I have to offer to the world?
First of all, with that background, sorry to interrupt, but like with all of that, like your personality type is not that.
No, I'm not a.
You have some similarities.
I'm
as
not
far
an
as,
analytical person.
No.
I'm a like, hey, how's it going kind of person. And I didn't value people skills as much as I should have. And I realized that just getting out there and putting yourself out there and being creative and trying to find solutions for people, which I'll be honest, like I got out of school in 2007 when jobs were tough,
Yeah.
right? Like the job market was super tough. And I had to frickin' pound my way into a company that would give me an opportunity. They're like, what, you're this fine art student? You're nobody. And I like that challenge. That challenge gets that coal engine locomotive burning inside you to say, I will prove you wrong.
One of the things I want to introduce at this point, just because I'm building off of what you're saying, is one thing that I admire about you. When I think about the car parts, when I think about the watches, when I think about the whiskeys recently, when I think about if I can, I'm going to, but like you're very much into guns as well, firearms. And what my thing is that at that point, what I think that when you talk about courage and you're going in as like a nobody and all that stuff, that you don't know shit about shit. So what do you do?
Right.
So what do? You educated yourself.
I consider myself the underdog. Like, I've got a lot to prove. If
So
you've
what-
got a lot to prove, then a lot can happen.
But the first step in that, and what I like about this is that you learn. You force yourself to learn. You love learning.
Observation
Observation
is everything.
Bobby wants to become the expert in whatever field
That's
he
right.
is in.
That's my point.
Whether it's by passion or by necessity, he likes to become the expert, and that is what's advanced you in the bourbon world. What's advanced you in a lot of other areas is
But I don't operate in typical hours, whether it's work or it's being a nerd about bourbon and sharing that with people. I love to be. I'm fanatical. I said that word.
You are fanatical.
Actually, earlier, I'm fanatical about a few things. I'm fanatical about like 5 things in life. And, there's this old adage that says, find something that you love and it's never work again. I don't believe in that. What I believe is find the things that you do love and find a way for that to excite you and inspire you in life. Like my love for bourbon, and maybe so. I mean, it's a controversial topic. My love for guns inspires me to do other things in life, trying to do it to the best of my ability and as best as I can. And you know what? That's the thing. I'm no expert at this. I don't know anything. But the reality of things is like, I'm here existing, trying to raise a family, trying to be a good guy.
Yeah, but you're selling yourself short, because my point is that, and I'll let you get back to your list there, is that I know for a fact when you were in this staffing agency, the person that hired you on is exactly right. You know people, you're creative, but you do not know that business. So you learn the business, you said, after I said that, you said observation. And that's a great way of learning.
Yeah.
But you have to learn the nuts and bolts of it. With whiskey, you can say like, "Oh, I like this, I like this, I like this," but you can also rattle off.
That's right.
You can rattle off mash bills. You can rattle. So you maybe you don't even realize it, but like I think a big part of this is when you're taking risk, and like Spencer said that you're a high risk, but you're calculated risk. So when you go into something, you that may be the one thing that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, or you don't think this, is that when you come from a family of CPAs and people that are in these analytical type of industries, it rubbed off. Believe it or not, like you may not even want to say it now at your age. It rubbed off.
But I felt like I wasn't going to amount to anything, and because I thought that was the way of life, and what I realized is, you know what, and this is the thing, and I'm going to break away from it for a second. I really am.
I love this. No, go ahead.
60 seconds.
Being yourself and owning your shit, owning who you are, there's nothing greater than doing that, because I'm not meant to be one of those people. And I would consider, I'll say it, I'd consider to be boring. I'm not a boring person, and I didn't know I could harness that in a way. And I'm not trying to get on a soapbox or whatever. I'm just saying that, like,
Go on, you're fine.
I wanted things for myself, for my family. Oh gosh, it's gonna sound stupid, but Nicole, you guys know Nicole. You
I know
guys Nicole better than anybody else.
Saint of a woman.
She's my muse in this. She's the reason why I want to. Yeah, he gets it.
Great wedding, for the record.
Yeah, it was a great wedding. But for me, it's like I want to have a family. I want to do these things, and I know I have to find a way to provide those things. And I know this is going off on a super weird tangent.
You're fine. You're fine.
But at the end of the day, honestly, I'm going to be who I am, because when you're true to yourself and when you do your own thing, the payoff is 10x. I still work in the recruiting industry, and I hire people who have great personalities, and they come in, and sometimes they're really quiet, and I say, wait, come on, sit here and talk to me. The reason I hired you is because your ability to have gusto and moxie and get out there and put yourself out there and do all these things. So just be that, and you'll be unbelievably successful. It's amazing how people shut themselves off, and that goes. I'm going to bring up another point on my thing is
before you hit your next point. How do you figure out who you are? How did you figure out who you are? Because that's something that a lot of people don't. They never get to.
I honestly had to have my parents cut me off to realize I was as strong as I was.
So you hit a level of not rock bottom, but a little bit of a shocker.
No, I could no longer be dependent on them, and I had to take my future, my destiny.
So you look at yourself.
I had to look at myself, and I had to provide that for myself.
I heard a interesting quote the other day, and Bobby has not done this necessarily, but it's on this realm. Is once you ruin your reputation, you are free.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Bobby never ruined his. And again, I don't. I've known him through thick and thin. I've known you through thick and thin here as well. And neither of you had ruined your reputations. Otherwise, I wouldn't be friends with you. But the gist of it is that you both always knew who you were. And once you both kind of settled into your groove of this is who I am and I'm not changing for anyone else.
Right.
And Bobby, you have not changed. You've changed as far as
You've grown.
more professional. You've grown. But you're like, this is who I am. And if you're not on board, that's okay. But I'm not changing for you.
True to yourself.
And Crane, I know the cigars and things like that has been a part of your world for a while now. But when we heard, at our dinner, 10 years ago, when you're leaving a corporate job, for whatever reasons or just didn't work out,
dream.
It was, I am going into the cigar world. We were not 100%. Awesome. That sounds great. We were like...
Because I was actually very, very nervous because we had set up the gentleman's dinner
That's
and
right.
it was in December.
That's right.
And I was let go about maybe a week to 10 days prior to it.
Perfect opportunity to order a $100 steak.
Exactly. We're going to a steakhouse and I'm like, I think
Can I have some of your sides? I believe was the first.
You and
Spencer
I weren't
always
that
buys
close.
sides.
We had
Love sides.
you and I, Spencer, weren't all that as close as like Bob and I were at that point. And I remember like talking to you across the table, and you're like, what's going on? Like, how's everything going? And I'm like, yeah, so I lost my job about a week to 2 weeks ago, and you're just like, oh,
how's it going?
yeah. But great time.
That's part of it though, because life is just that.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve, you have done amazing things with the opportunity that you have.
Truly.
Appreciate that.
Truly.
Appreciate that.
And we wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for you
Appreciate
expanding upon
your passion.
You took a basic thing and you've blown it up to a community of people who are passionate about something, and there's connection there. And in 2019, I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't connect, it's nothing. And not if you can connect, there's more money involved. I'm saying like there's nothing more important in life than having connections
And building a network, things like that.
That's right. And so I remember it. I truly, I think back to it, and I think about those times, and I remember supporting you and being there with you, and this venture has been amazing.
Yeah.
Look where we are now, dude.
It's not where you thought you would be in 10 years,
No,
but aren't you happier for it?
I am.
And the opportunity that you had, and BS as a company, and partnering with Brian and having everything that you've had is a better path and more fulfilling than you would have had it too, man. I mean, are we being real? Like,
Yeah, so the opportunity would have been possibly financially more.
but really though,
No, financially, yeah, but it's yeah. So far, yes. So far,
Patreon.
Yeah. Let's bring up the Patreon.
no,
thing,
but for real though,
No, for real, financially, but no, I was miserable, and I've talked about that quite a bit.
That's right.
But going forward, I mean, that's the whole thing about the cigars, the bourbons, and everything else is, and Bob, you're touching on it a lot, is the things that you've talked about with your employees and everything. It's all about who are they, what do they want out of this. I mean, it's not just about the actual brass tacks of it.
Dustin?
I see the mic.
I just want to touch on a point. Bob, you said you came from a family of CPAs, lawyers, etc. A lot of analytical people. I'm an analytical person personally. It's just the way that I work. It's the way my mind works. But you say that you're not analytical, but you are, and you are in the sense when it comes to people.
Yeah.
You have
That's a really good point.
Right. You have, and that's a skill that I've learned over the years with work, is you have to be analytical when it comes to people. You have a skill that I think, I can relate with, is you read people very well. And, Spencer, you're like you said, you're kind of in between, Steve and Bob, where Bob's more of a risk taker. One thing that I've known, I've known you not quite as long as Bob or as Steve, but you ask a lot of questions.
True.
A lot.
That's a good thirst.
You
That's
do.
a good thirst to have.
But I think that plays a huge part in your risk taking. Is you want to know. It's a lot like me. I want to know as much information as possible.
I want to know the angles. Want to know the angles.
Right.
Well,
I want to equip myself with as many tools as possible in order to make a calculated decision.
But that's a virtue anymore. That's a virtue.
It is, and it's not something that's seen anymore with people because the people skill of it is lost.
Long haul versus short haul.
Right. And I think
I
the whole community of the whiskey and the cigars kind of brings that back into full circle because
There's a common ground there.
we're focusing on the people. We're not focusing on the monetary value or the financial value or what it is that you have in your hand. It's who you are.
Well, the cigars and the whiskey are a tool to get to know the people.
That's right.
Exactly.
And we don't use it for financial gain. I mean, it's about community.
Sometimes.
I'm in the cigar business.
Bobby's in the whiskey business.
No, you're right, though. I mean, it isn't. It's a common ground. I've said it before that as you get older, what's your network? Who are your friends? Coming from a moving background and all that stuff. It's like, who are you going to call when you need to move a dresser from one room to another?
That's right.
That you don't have, like your
Spencer.
TaskRabbit.
TaskRabbit. Is that are you invested in that?
They are.
You're highly invested.
I'd like to plug.
Section.
No, I'm saying.
Can I?
You can go ahead. Go ahead. You want to get back to your
list?
list.
I do.
I want. No, I we've gone off on a tangent.
No, but the tangents are the best part. I've been fortunate enough to have a mentor in my life, and
Bobby, I wouldn't consider myself a mentor.
Right. Not you. It's not you. My business partner in my staffing company would feed me these nuggets of just virtue. And the best thing I ever heard was, this is back in the 70s. He's 75 years old now, Bob Gamble. I'm going to plug him. Probably not watching, probably asleep.
He's on.
But one of the things he said to me was this. When we had our staffing company way back in the 70s, before I was born, we brought in the top number 1 selling Mary Kay consultant in the United States.
What's his name?
And she said, and this has stuck with me for years, and I wish more people would buy into this, is your success in life will be in direct proportion of your ability to change. And when we talk about risk, and when we talk about what you buy into in order to take that risk, the word is really, truly change. And this was a woman who had the pink Cadillac, was making $200,000 a year back in the 70s, which is ungodly money.
Yeah.
And she said she sat there in front of these stodgy recruiting firm headhunters,
hustlers,
who were eat what you kill people, and said, your success in life is in direct proportion of your ability to change. Now, I know I've said that twice.
To adapt to change or
to
change?
Your ability. Ask a similar question.
Your ability to change.
And so change or adapt. I mean, that's I've heard the other saying.
Isn't it the same thing?
It can be. It can be.
Isn't change the ability to adapt to new?
It is
oncoming things.
I just don't. I just don't want to go full blown where like you change yourself entirely. You don't have to take 180. So you're talking about adapting.
I should.
If you don't
asterisk that or caveat that with the fact that in sales, the market's always changing, and who you are and the success that you have, because people in 2019 are adverse to change.
Yeah.
It's tough to accept new ways of doing things and changes because everybody wants stability and a reason why and a purpose and this and that and the other thing. And I really, truly believe that the most successful people adapt with their surroundings and the current time. I'm done.
Well, no, you're not done. I think it is adapt. If you don't adapt, you die is another sales thing.
Absolutely.
So, if you're in the 70s, right, like, it's like, well, I heard about this thing, Facebook.
Yeah.
I've heard about this thing.
What is this?
Twitter.
Yeah.
I've heard about this.
Facebook.
I've heard about this internet thing coming up in the late 90s. Yeah, it's not
Email.
going anywhere. Electronic mail. No one's going to watch that. No one's going to listen to that.
So-
no one's going to read that. You know what I mean?
So I would ask is, when we talk about the three, I have nothing to lose. I'll be honest with everybody.
You have a lot to lose, by the
No,
way.
well, when I was younger,
I'm going to get Nicole on the phone.
and please don't.
She's on
And
as
she
well.
thought I
She's
was
also
she
watching.
thought I was crazy for the things that I did in business. But listen, man, I'm an art student from Kent State with a bachelor in fine arts.
You got to love that match.
What do I have to lose?
Well,
I might as well try to do something great.
Well, I think as you get older, the stakes get a little higher. Me and Mr. Crane over here are different stages of life, and you're at different stages of life, and the stakes get a little higher as far as. But I think you were naive enough
That's true. That's true.
that would you do the same things now at 36, 37 as you did at 26, 27?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Because there's a certain shelf life for those risks.
Right.
Risk has a shelf life, and I really truly mean that. And I think that in life we make choices, and when you talk about risk, you talk about choices. You
And
go
reward.
one way or the other. And I
you talk about risk, you talk about choices.
I think they're one and the same. I think that the ability to do one thing or another is a choice.
Yes.
And I think that's the reason why. No. But hear me out.
I want to say this.
Time is a pie chart. You only have so much of it to give to work, family, stewardship in your community, sleep, things like that. And I'll be honest with everybody in the room. And I can't believe I'm saying this on the internet, but I gave way too much of my early to mid to late 20s to business, and I regret a little bit of it, but I'm happy where I'm at. But I regret a little bit of that because I wasn't balanced, and balance is a big thing.
Balance is tough, especially as you have more responsibilities. You got house, you got kids, you got wife, you got girlfriend. So it's a tough balance. And a good saying that I always like to use is problems don't go away; they just change. So
Yeah,
the problems that you're
that's
dealing
fair.
with now and the choices that you deal with now are just different than the ones that we had 5-10 years ago.
Did you guys ever do the choose your own adventure books?
Yeah,
Loved
loved them.
All right,
Always
let me-
would read back and choose a different adventure.
No, don't get ahead of me.
Babysitters Club or Choose Your Own
No,
Adventure?
don't get ahead of me. So choose your own adventure books. I don't think they're around anymore. They might be.
They are.
You're still
On
reading.
audio, it's not as easy.
The Choose Your Own
Flip
Whiskey
to side
Adventure
B
books
if
are
you
great.
choose this.
Yeah, on the podcast.
Choose Your
it's
Own
tough.
Whiskey Adventure is
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Especially on
That's just cracking
Willet,
a bottle.
Bourbon is better
No,
than
let me ask you this.
Is it because the Will Rye is
Hang on,
gone?
hang on. So the choose your own adventure books. I think this is something that when I bring up the different strategies or the different struggles, like where I say that I'm not as much of a risk taker.
More than you think.
Yeah, it's
though.
absolutely more than you think
That's
because
fair.
think
That's
of the
fair.
things you're doing. Think of the
I
things
get
you're
it,
doing.
I get it. But my question to the group in the studio audience and everyone listening live on I want to see on the Facebook Live video. Were you, when you read the Choose Your Own Adventure book, right? Were you the type of person that went from point A to point B? And when I say point B, it's you
Step
stuck.
1 to step 2.
You stuck with your decisions. You said, all right, if you choose this, flip to page 46. If you choose this, flip to page 24.
Did you read both, or did you just stick with
That's
the
my
one?
question. Did you go to the page, read it, and then make your next decision, or did you go and read both of them and see which one was a better scenario? I want to know. Yeah, Bob, what did you do?
You read the whole book, front to finish.
No,
page by page.
I don't.
What'd you do?
Very
Honestly,
What'd you do?
I didn't think I was going to amount to anything, so I had to really make snap decisions and try to do as much as I could. And I regret some of that.
No,
I have regrets. I really do
Jesus.
have regrets in that.
Bobby, I think you're hard on yourself.
you are hard on
So
yourself.
I'll go with it. So
No, I'm
have you
not.
ever do you guys ever read horoscopes? Have you ever read your horoscope on your
Yes.
birthday? All right. Do you ever read the horoscopes that aren't yours?
Yeah.
And are you like, man, those do not fit me at all, but the one that did.
Oh shit. Got some cognac on the table.
Deal with it.
$1,700 pour.
Yes,
So
yes.
so for me personally, I stuck with it and then would ride it out, and then maybe
You did.
but
I
then-
believe that with you.
Right. Maybe at the end you go back. But I think if you're willing to go down that path, you should stick it out. But I think it's also, for me, back in the day, when I had some time to read those books, I would maybe just, all right, if I fall down the ditch, or if, all right, this next page you go down the hole and you fall down the volcano or whatever it was, maybe you do go back. What is your rationale for asking the question? What are you trying to get?
great
What are you trying to get at?
So it's interesting. I tried to, and honestly, I did not prepare for this. What do you need?
Do you need
Napkin.
more cognac for the table?
I gotta-
Well,
yeah.
I'm cleaning off the lighter.
Cognac
that
all over the table.
I'm cleaning off the
It's
limited
fine.
edition Liga
It's the
Privada
French
lighter.
Yeah, no, I want that lighter. I've wanted that lighter
Well,
for 10
it's,
years.
it's not going to close anymore.
But I'll
because,
take it, though, so it's all good.
no, the reason I asked the question, no, it wasn't a wet cutter. It's a
Dustin, you got
wet
a,
Liga 9
or something?
lighter.
Towel.
Paper towels are up there. All right, so the reason I asked the question was because when we're talking about taking risks, and you're talking about everything that you've done, Bobby, and Spencer, you haven't really even dove into your life. My thing is when you look at those choose your own adventure things, that's probably why I was not as much, and I still am not as much of a risk taker, because it's the unknown.
And age has something to do with it.
It does. I've learned now. So I'm 39 now.
You're
Now it's-
39.
You look
Yeah.
37 though, for the
Thanks,
record.
thanks,
Not
thanks.
a day over 37.
No, when I look at it, is that as I've gotten older, it's I am more willing to take risks. But it's funny how life. Well, yeah, don't throw that on the heater, the paper towel.
It will explode.
No, when I look at risk now, I'm not. So yeah, Bob and I don't have the same life, and Spencer and I don't have the same life, and so when I look at risk now, I bought the house that we're in right now.
Calculated risk.
It was to a point.
It is.
But it's one of those things that now there's a new factor. So
right.
so if
That's right.
if I lost my job tomorrow, if I said, all right, hey, I've got this great opportunity, and now I have to look at this where I'm like, hey, Brian, who's a friend of mine who's employed me for 7 years now, who took a risk on me and invested in me.
And you guys have turned it into something phenomenal.
We've had a great time with it, and it's been phenomenal. But it's like when I look at that, it's like, what's the gain there? What makes the risk worth it? Is there a percentage of income? Is there a percentage of
No,
happiness?
there's not.
Or
There's
is it a point that you look at something if you're happy and someone presents an opportunity to you, like the choose your own adventure? It's like, hey, you're at this point in your life, and if you wanna, everything's good, but now you have to make the next move. Do you go for $20,000, $100,000? Do you go for?
It's not about that, though,
No,
and you know
well,
that.
yeah,
and you know that.
That's the question: is that do you present it as there's something better out there, or do you present it to yourself as I'm this level of happy?
The grass is not always greener, yet the grass you might be on might not be as green as you want. I
Right.
think it's also different, when you did, just to narrow it down a little bit, when you decided to do the house, you did it for yourself, but you also did it in hopes that a significant other would also be in the house. So you weren't necessarily making the choice 100% on your own. I think when you're making a choice 100% on your own, it's different than when you have 2 kids, a
Absolutely
wife,
right.
a mortgage, and things along those lines. But I think that the risks that you make are to provide, more, whether that's time for your family, whether you have a career that you can, sometimes the risk is, I want to have a more balanced life.
Yeah.
Sometimes the risk is, all right, do I want to be, for myself personally, if I'm out of town a few more days a week, is that risk worth the reward at the end of the day?
But can I ask a basic question?
Absolutely.
Are you
Now's-
happy?
now's-
Are you happy?
So I don't like that question because I think
I love that question.
Well, the reason I don't like
Which
that
question?
question,
Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Well, the reason I don't like that question is because I don't like the actual term happy.
What don't you like
I also
about
don't
that?
like the other word that I don't like. I don't like the word content.
whoa, yeah, that's
So
That's
when,
not a good
when me and Mr. Crane have ever got into not heated discussions, but emotional or just heart to heart, let's really kind of put the cards on the table. I view us and I'm just going to say the three of us here as not necessarily sharks, but if you're stagnant, you will die. So
Adapt or die.
Adapt or die, or just move. So whatever,
Do something.
I always view life as kind of setting bricks. Are you building bricks? Is the next move that you're putting another brick on the wall? And if you're constantly putting bricks on the wall, if you're constantly doing things to add another piece to the puzzle, eventually at the end of the day, you build a wall, you build a house, things along those lines. So I don't like people that I shouldn't say I don't like people. I don't like the idea of just doing the same thing for the sake of doing the same thing. I like doing something to get to the next step, whatever that next step is.
I love that.
And
I think
sometimes that's financial
that's
risk,
powerful.
and sometimes that's other aspects of life. But trying to, did I add another brick today to make tomorrow a better day?
And in what context is that taken? Because I'll tell you right now, this topic is not about the reward from the risk. This topic is about, in my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, are you pushing it further? Are you trying to be smarter or better or have better outcomes in life? It's not about the instant whiffum, the what's in it for me.
It's the journey. It's not the destination.
It is
it's not
absolutely the journey.
The destination will change. The journey is what you're on.
Let me ask you this though, because there are a lot of people that I don't want to say they become obsessed with it. They become focused on
Focus.
They become
Focus.
They become focused on the change. They get focused on the keep moving
I
forward
think
thing.
people get focused on the destination. So
But the steps into it was my
Yeah.
point is that when you get to that point where you're constantly moving forward and then you get obsessed with that, or you get I don't want to say brought down. I'm trying to think of the right word. I think that there are people that
discouraged.
they will throw everything else, including people and opportunities, to the wayside just to keep moving forward in their mind.
I don't disagree with that. I think, as we're coming to the new year, and I think we did one of these maybe last year or the year before, when you come to like New Year's resolutions and things along those lines, everyone's gets to the point where like, hey, I want to lose some weight, or I want to get in better shape. That's great. But you can't just have that as the goal, and that just can't be the destination. You have to have steps to there. You can't just say, I want to lose. I'm just going to use weight just as an easy example here. Is you don't just want to lose weight. You want to, what's the steps that you're taking to get there? And you've been on that journey, that fitness journey, years ago, and you've attained it, but you're constantly trying to improve on it. But it's not just I want to lose weight. Like, what actual weight do you want to get to?
Right.
How do you actually get to it? And if you hit that mark,
Are you even happy when you
are
get
you
there?
even happy? Or I use this with Bobby every now and then. If I gave Bobby $1 million, that would make you
Please.
happy. But that's not going to do it for you.
No.
You're going to figure out a way to make $2 million. Or you're going to want. Some people want more.
I might
and
just
more.
buy $1 million worth of bourbon and tell you I lost it.
And are you willing to take a risk?
We would know.
You might, and I will share it. No, to that point though, Spencer, you're so right. Like when I think about it, and when we go back to the original topic of taking risks, it is nothing more than, is it leading to you, or is it leading you to what you originally planned and had set out in your mind? I think that everybody, every day, there's a risk associated with what you do. And that's why I think it's so powerful. Like, this is a really scary topic to put your hands around, because everything can be a success or a failure depending on what you're measuring
or who you're measuring it against.
Or who you're measuring it against.
In your case, it's you.
No.
Bob.
Sometimes
I'm very hard on
Based on what
myself.
he
You
said
guys know I'm
earlier.
very
Yeah.
hard on
Yeah.
myself.
you could have a big, beautiful house in the suburbs, but there's always going to be someone that's going to have a bigger, more beautiful
Yes.
house in the suburbs.
That's right.
There's always going to be someone who has more. So your success, your risk needs to. You have to measure. You have to figure out what you want to measure yourself against.
So I'm going to go real
Please
quick. It's
go
a
ahead,
question of be daring. So BE space DRARING. ING. Be daring. If you are progressing in life with something you feel like you're making ground on and you're moving forward on, then nothing else matters, because that's a risk in itself. And I'll tell you, we progress in many different ways, in many different angles. It's not forward. Sometimes it's sideways. Sometimes it's backwards to reflect on the things that we've learned and to understand and to really find ourselves. You know, guys, you said it earlier. I'm just going to say it one more time.
Go on.
My self-value was nil compared to what my family has accomplished. And I had to figure out what that meant for myself.
What about now? No.
That's a good question, man.
What about now? Like, do you still have that chip?
Yeah, because I want to measure up. Even now.
When you say
everything you guys know about me, even now.
When you measure up, I'm gonna get a little personal. Like, when you talk about taking risks, like, you have a lot more to lose. You have a lot more to gain. There's more chips on the table right now. Right?
There really are.
So with that, just mentality for people, because again, I mean, you shrugged it off, but you know, people listening, myself included, at the level you're at right now. How old are you?
36.
Bob? You're 36 years old. You're young.
Tell my back that.
Hi-oh.
All right.
Go Browns.
You're young.
Are we talking about the Browns?
What's the mentality? Are you trying to still measure up, or are you trying to be on top when you're talking about taking risks? Because
can I be honest to God with you two guys?
You're allowed to say fuck
honest
you.
to us
and fuck the microphone. And the thousands speaking to it so they can hear it.
The thousands of people out there, you can be honest with everyone.
I just want to be the person I'm supposed to be to my wife.
That's fair.
And my kids. I don't care about anything else anymore.
So now it's about you.
I want my career to be what it is, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I love that, and I love, but I not that I came from nothing, but that I felt worthless, and so I've created worth for myself through that. But like at the end of the day, I just want to have fun. I know that sounds like a 12-year-old. I just want to have fun, but I think some of the greatest entrepreneurs in life just want to have fun doing what they do and providing for the people they want to provide for and having the friends they want to have. And the problem is society teaches us that we have to only hang out and be associated with people that are like us. And I say, fuck that. I'll say that 100 times on
that's a good point.
The air. I don't care. None of it matters. You know what? These 4 bottles and that one dead bottle, this bottle's about to be dead, this bottle's about to be dead. Nothing else matters to me tonight than spending time with 2 guys that I've known for over a decade. And you know what? Fuck the risk. I don't care. It doesn't matter right now, because what you derive out of life is more meaning over time. And risk then becomes just your ability to provide for those who you love.
So what I learned from that is simply that you have prioritized.
That's right.
What's important.
That's right.
And that's a powerful takeaway for me, is that when you're making your day-to-day decisions and when you're looking at your future, like again, you're 36 years old, or if you're 20 years old, if you're 50 years old, no matter what it is, it's when you get to the point where you're actually assessing, which you should constantly do. You should change.
Things change in your priorities.
Yeah,
what's important to you then is not important to you now.
The variables change, and so when you're assessing things, I asked you earlier about how do you know yourself. The other thing is how do you realize what your priorities are, and those are those things where you're taking those risks, because it's all coming together as this conversation goes on for me.
I focus too much on business. I have
to a point, but there's a level of priority. Nate, what was your question?
So I want to preface this with, I don't want anyone to give any broad strokes. If you guys can be specific, I think that would be great for this topic. What are some of the things that hold you back from taking a risk? Because I think that's what a lot of people have trouble with. It's not necessarily taking a risk, it's getting over what's holding them back from taking a risk.
But isn't it mentality though, Nate? Like, isn't it mentality? And I think people, I think society and school and the way we've been raised have taught us to fall in line. And what I challenge you to do as the creative artist who doesn't give a I don't give a fuck is I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to try to do the most with my life and try to have a great, fulfilling life. But now, instead of then, now I do it for the continuity of my family's sake versus trying to just be the cool guy with the cool watch.
Yeah, your priorities have changed
immensely.
Your social circle, that was another one that we actually already addressed on this podcast. Your social circle, the people that are important to you, I'm not saying they all went away or they've changed 100%.
Not at all, right.
However, your immediate social circle now, Bob, is your family.
That's right.
So it's not about impressing your friends with a cool watch.
It helps, though. I like his watches.
Yeah, you have a great watch collection, but you're not necessary. You are actually. I'm sorry. You're providing for it, but you're also impressing your kids. So you're not showboating. You're not flaunting.
No.
When I say you're impressing your kids, you're doing to a point where it's like when you provide for your kids. You know, the kids as they get older, they go out into the world, and then they have to measure up in a sense.
That's
so
right.
You don't have to necessarily be the best. You want to be at the very best. Not even talking about you, Bob, anymore, but you want to be adequate. You want to measure up that you are providing for your surrounding social circle. For you, it's family. Spencer, it's your friends and family. For me, it's my friends and family, and Liz. It's I wish I could do more. And so that's the drive, and I think that's part of what you're talking about is like, what's the drive of taking risks is that I don't want to take a risk that's not going to be a good one. But I also don't want to remain in that moment where I think that things could grow.
Yeah.
It's not that things could be better.
No,
it's never about things could be better. That's the
everybody
common thing.
Gets better. Everybody gets better.
But the grass is greener thing always makes people strive for. Oh, I could do better. I can have a better relationship. I can have a better job. I can make more money. It's like you got to grow to that point.
Yeah.
It's not. I look at these like classic salespeople that used to work for me back in my old career, and it's like I had these people come in that were in sales, and they'd have a 2-year stint here. Then they have a 2-year stint here.
That's right.
You were in recruiting, you know what I mean? Like same thing. It's like, but when
salespeople moving on,
salespeople always they're gonna make 6 figures, and then 2 years later they're gonna make 6 figures, and then 2 years later they're gonna make 6 figures.
Does that satisfy them?
It's like fucking stay in one point and grow from it, and then when the right opportunity comes on, that's where you take that leap.
So isn't risk really in what we're talking about, Steve? And that is such. I just want to take a second because that's the virtue here is taking risks really matter depending on where you are in life. And one of the things to that, and I mean this, is and you know what? For anybody who's watching us right now, are you fulfilling yourself inside? Because risk is all about the outcome, right? Like you take risk for the outcome. And I would say to anybody here, to anybody who's listening, and I know I'm waxing on things and getting on my soapbox, but at the end of the day, isn't it really about expanding who you are and pushing the envelope? And it's not about being something who you aren't, but it's the next level to something who you can be and pushing that envelope.
When you talk about priorities and pushing the envelope, Jody Jacks, who's she's
hell yeah,
a great person. So Bob, you haven't met Jody, but you know that TX bourbon that we have up on the shelf. She donated that. We're gonna be doing that.
That's a beautiful thing.
Jody's a big part of the community that we have
crack
here.
That.
We will on a podcast. That's donated
tonight.
Literally on a podcast.
Okay. She says, being a newly single mom, I have to be even more careful about what risks I take.
Yeah,
everything
right.
has to be for my kiddos and to make sure I can provide emotionally and financially for them.
So
like that's the priority thing.
And that's
Your
all that
social
matters to you,
circle and
Jody.
your
Like
priorities
that's
change.
So going
that's
back,
life.
Going
That's
back
life.
to Nate's question here, and I'm not sure if we fully answered it at
You're not
all
drinking the Willet?
for the record. Well, the rye is almost common because that's
you
the
have
best one.
you have no sense in your life.
All right, go on, Spencer.
So Nate, you were asking what is the
Does someone wait? Does someone want to try this bourbon who's sitting out there?
too oaky?
Have you had it?
it's too
all right.
oaky.
So
I'm gonna do it.
You asked
All right, go
what
ahead,
holds
Spencer.
people back. I think was the original question.
Yeah.
That's
What
a good
holds you
question.
back?
So
Be specific.
So I will
right, Nate.
I will be 100% as specific as the time allows.
Go ahead.
So I don't necessarily think rock bottom is what's holding people back. I don't necessarily think that losing all of your money in a bad financial venture is what holds people back. I think it's based upon your situation. So if, like Jody, if she has, a kid or kids and is trying to provide for herself and,
Which I love.
And she is single. But trying to provide a better life for that. Once you have more people involved, it is more difficult to take more risk. If you're just worried about yourself, then you can be more risk averse, because if shit hits the fan, then you are the only one who's affected by it. Now, in speaking between Bobby and between...
No, Jody, let's start a business. What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do with
Bob's
your life? I'll
invest about
invest.
18
So I'll be a part of that.
businesses.
I will be whatever investor you need to accomplish your goals.
let's-
I'm in. I am in right now.
We have-
You have that passion. I'm in right now.
Who is-
You tell me, let's do it together so that you can provide for what you want to provide for your kids, because that is key number one. And I
amazing.
get what Spencer's saying.
Let him finish.
So
Sorry.
Gary V just chimed in. Gary V from Instagram.
Steve Jobs.
So I'm kind of the in between of these two guys, where it's
Right.
what is the risk versus the reward? And for myself, I take more calculated risk in a lot of different areas of my life. But I think if you're willing to invest in the right people and have the right people around you, then you can have more. You can be more risk averse. If you have a wife that believes in you, if you have a girlfriend who believes in you, and you think you have something that you can take your situation to the next level, and that person is behind you, you can make more risky choices because you know someone has your back. If it's just you and your kid and that's your current situation, you can't take the same amount of risk, because the downfall of that risk could be devastating. But hopefully, if you don't take a risk, you can't get the reward. So you can't hit greatness if you're not willing to take some sort of risk in a variety of situations. I know Jake was on this podcast, obviously, for years, and he took
he founded it with me. I mean, let's not.
He
Shot over that.
took a lot of risks.
He's currently taking a risk.
He's currently taking a
Moving out of
risk.
state.
Moving out of state, changing, professions. It's a calculated risk.
Has it been better for him?
We shall see. So
far,
far,
yeah.
I
so
think
far,
it has
so
been
good.
really big.
But you cannot hit greatness if you want greatness if you're not willing to take a risk.
And Jake relies on himself to be the answer
He does.
to what his destiny has been.
But in your case, Bobby, if you didn't have Nicole, who knew you when you had nothing, who knew you when you had beauful blonde highlights in college,
They were hot. They were hot.
If-
Frosted tips.
if you're lucky enough to have a partner that's willing to ride with you and to believe in you, and to know if you fall, he or she can pick you up, you got a better shot at it. Hopefully that maybe answered your question a little bit.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that I had nothing to lose.
You
But
did.
now you
I have
do.
more to lose now than I did 10 years ago.
Now you do, but the people that don't have the significant other, they don't have the family, they don't have the backing. Like to bring it back to Jody. I mean, it's like I like that. The reason I wanted to read that comment, for those of you who aren't watching the Facebook Live and part of the conversation,
Jody
is
and I are going to start a business
you guys are
together
gonna become BFFs
tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope you do. I
fucking will.
To Nate's question, I think is a very, very relevant comment and question on taking risks, and it's, to me, what's holding me back a lot of times is I think it was one of it's how you're raised. Bobby brought up a great point where he was kind of going along with the flow until it was all shut off.
It was shut off big time.
Big
Time.
I think maybe some people might relate with me, where I went with the flow for, I don't know. I probably went with the flow, and I'm interested. You know, you talk about if we do the podcast about whiskey in like 5 years. You know what I mean? I'd love I'd love to go back to the first 2 years of this podcast in 3 or 4 years. If we're hopefully we're still doing it and we have the community out there. I went with the flow for about almost 30 years of my life. You know, it was like I grew up in the suburbs. I had a good life. We moved to Ohio for my dad to start a financial planning business, and he was very successful before I was born, after I was born, and then all of a sudden it was like I was in high school and we had to make sure that the house was clean because we might sell the house because things weren't going as well.
That's right.
Never did. My mom still lives in the house. Somehow I don't know how they made it work. I mean, I don't even. I have no idea. I have no idea how it worked. Looking back now as an adult. But then it was like, you know, you graduate, you go to college because you graduated high school. That was the whole thing back in the late 90s.
That was
like
the
yeah,
preferred method.
High school was college prep, and if you couldn't make college prep, then now they're probably making more money than me because they went to trade school, and there you go. They have no debt, and they made money for the last 10 years. And so I went through all these steps where it was like after college I was a mover, and then I was offered a management job, and then I spent the next 10 years just climbing the ranks in that because that was the comfort level. And every 2 years I was like, I want to do something different, but I don't know what I want to do. So
I remember.
I know. And now you get to the point where it's like the risk was when I got let go from that position is like, all right, I'm going to take a cut in money because I was looking at jobs in a similar field, and I was reading the job description. I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be burnt out in 6 months because I was sore
Steve,
of it.
Did someone believe in you?
No, yeah, Brian did.
Brian
yeah.
did.
Brian did.
And Brian took a risk on you.
Brian took
because
a risk on me
you
financially.
Could add, he knew you could add a lot to
I got to the point now where, and fast forward to today, is I still am that same person where I don't want to take the risks because I'm unsure of what the reward would be. I was that type of.
Can I ask you a question?
I was that type of kid that you can give me 1 second. I was the type of kid that I would read ahead in the Choose Your Own Adventure book because I wanted to get to the end with the success. I wanted to get the treasure. I wanted to get to that point. I think most people did that. That was the brilliance of those. Yeah, Nate, you're raising your hand.
10 years of knowing you, you're not done yet.
I'm not done yet. I'm not saying that. And that's the thing. As I've gotten older, is that now if I read that book, is like, all right, I know because to Bob's point, there's not as much at risk maybe now because you have your head on straight. You're not just throwing it all out there.
Me?
But when you know that it doesn't really matter,
Everybody.
You're going to learn from it.
That's right. Can I ask you a question?
Get after it.
Unsolicited.
It's actually
Is this
solicited.
the BS Silver?
Yes.
It's the best cigar I smoked tonight.
Shut up.
Sorry, man. Like, fuck the plug. Fuck everything else. I don't care.
What was the question?
The question is, Steve.
Was this a BS Silver? Was the question?
Yeah, no, but for real. Like, honestly, guys, like, I'm not here to promote people solicited.
No soliciting.
The check's in the
right.
mail, by the way, Bob.
The reality of it is, like, you have your thing going for you. You are being way too modest. And the reality of it is that's how our generation rolls. When you look at the age range of us three up here right now, that's how we are. We accept what we have, and we try to make the most of it. And you're sitting here, honestly, man, like, I'm going to call you out for a minute. You're sitting here telling me, like, I don't have what I used to have. What you have right now is beautiful. Stop, dude.
Oh, it's
like,
better. No, I'm not saying that.
No, but you're not giving yourself the credit. I'm going to call you out right now because I've known you long enough to be able to call you out. The reality of it is, like, you've got an amazing thing going, and I love the Illegal Tobacco. I like the Monte Cristo. The BS Silver is lighting me up. So don't act like you don't have something going, man. Like, that's the truth and that's the reality. Sorry. Like, I have to go real on the camera for a minute, but this is a cigar right here, and I know you've been a part of that.
Yeah.
So Mr. Don't Take Risk is taking a lot of risks, creating a brand with a guy who I love and I respect.
It's a risk that he feels comfortable with.
That's right.
So everyone has different types of risk. And
Great. Who wants to start a brand of cigars tomorrow? I'm in.
So we have
Submit your feedback on Facebook Live. Let's do it. I got the money. Let's do it.
So we are looking for a direct competitor to BS Cigars. This is basically where
CS.
CS cigars.
BBS.
Honestly, man, like
Not
this
Brayer
cigar,
BS
Yeah.
you talk about, God, I'm going to take it back to 3 hours ago. You talk about a cigar that helps you even out the night. This is the cigar, man. Like, I'm not even fucking with you right now. I'm on this cigar right now, and you have proven that, and you didn't even plan it because I asked you for that cigar.
That's right. I was
like,
supposed to smoke it, but that's yours.
That's
now.
right, and I'm smoking it right now because I'm gonna do that because I've known him forever. But the reality of it is, like,
Yeah.
the risk is maybe Bob likes it, maybe Bob doesn't. Maybe Bob's drinking 120 proof whiskey all night. The reality of it is, like, this is hot, man. Like,
Let me ask you this though, like with that, like my mentality a lot of times, like with the podcast, with the cigar and everything else, because I'll be honest, when I went through my life shift, not too long ago. Well, it was longer than
it was the best
like,
thing for you, by the way. I'm
it
going to
took
tell you
me-
that as a friend right now.
I know that, but it was like when I went through the risk, and I'm looking forward to listening back to this podcast years from now. Is
48 hours from now.
Well, probably. I always do. But I've never fully invested in some things in my life, and it's one of those things that when I look at like the BS Cigar Company, when I look at that, the risk was if we went nationwide, there's a lot of money that goes into it. There's a lot of time that goes into it, and given my circumstances,
Great. Can I be a rep on the weekend so I can sell the shit out of your shit?
Absolutely.
That is a risk that he's
No,
not willing to take.
I'm in. Let me moonlight, dude. Like, seriously. And again, let's break away from that for a second. No, Steve, seriously.
Let's break away. Go ahead.
When you look at you, no. When you look at Steve, when you look at Spencer, when you look at me,
Wild
we've
card.
known each other for a long time, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of things.
So
It doesn't fucking matter, quite frankly.
Do you guys watch The Ranch?
I love the ranch.
So there's a girl on it. You remember Alyssa
It's Alicia Cuthbert.
So you're familiar with the show.
I don't know who
mean,
you're
I know-
talking about.
I mean, I know
exactly
who
what
she
I'm
is.
talking
Talking
about.
about blonde.
Oh, so you've okay. So in the memory bank.
She's the girl from The Girl Next Door.
So that's where I'm going with
Never
this.
heard of it.
So there's a real easy saying from that movie that I think has to do with the risks. I think we all calculate differently. That is the juice worth the squeeze.
Oh,
That's right.
God. That's actually from The Girl Next Door.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
So I think we all view that differently, Steve, and I think that you are you like risk if you know what the squeeze is. And I
But
think, if you decide to make the next step in whatever aspect of life, whether it's the BS cigar, whether it's the cigar shop, whether it's a podcast, that you calculate, is the juice worth the squeeze?
That's right.
I mean, was
And-
BS a risk?
Not for me.
But it was still, you wanted to prove yourself
Was the
as a
tent
brand.
the tent of Owens with the risk, the podcast the
Do you
risk?
realize that your cigars are better than 3/4 cigars in the market?
Yeah,
Do you realize that? No,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like, fuck the microphones. Do you realize that?
I do.
Okay, then. No. For everyone who's sitting here enjoying it and understanding that, do you realize that you're being modest? Like,
I do think you have a new rep here, for the record.
no.
If it
Yeah.
goes-
Yes, and I will.
Bobby Hirschman says
Bobby
might be
Bottles
time to
But
wrap it up.
My point is,
Bobby's been with us the entire night on Whiskey Wednesday, and he's like, "Oh, you guys
that's
are."
what I mean. No, with risk
Starting
comes
to tail
being
off.
I
a
remember
self.
my first bourbon.
Hold on. Being a self promoter, you have to be a self promoter. I've got a list of topics here. My topics range from being daring.
We're getting to the closing remarks. Just so you know.
Change is everything. Courage, adaptation, and everything in between. You can act like it's not, but it is. So
I appreciate.
Are you trying to go towards closing remarks?
Yeah, I wanted to get to that because we're getting to that time range, right? Where are we at, Nate?
7.
2:41 on the recording. So this is the time we're way past that. But I knew it
So
would
what
be
are they
that way.
saying? So what are they saying?
No, they're loving this. Like
No.
Bobby Hirschman, who's in I think PA.
Yeah, and I love that fucking guy.
He says might be time to wrap it up, and he says fuck the microphone, ha ha ha. Oh my god, I got a drink with this dude. So again, it's talking about you, Bob.
I'm nobody.
Avi
First
says-
off, I'm nobody. I'm not worth shit.
He didn't say you're somebody, for the record. He just said
Correct. That's correct. Bobby Hirschman wants the Weller Foolproof. I got you, dog. Come
Bobby's
on.
the one that wants us to do a whole podcast on Crown.
Oh, I like Crown.
Dude, I will get
I'll
down
plan
on
it.
How much
some
maple
motherfucking
crown can
ground.
we get?
We'll see what we can get.
Salted caramel, don't fucking front.
All right, so I'm going to start with Bob because I feel like
You guys start with Bob?
I'm not going to end with him.
How many hours do you have?
All right,
We are
Bob.
we are starting now.
Bob, closing remarks. You just rattled off some of your other bullet points that you prepped, and that's one thing I like about you, Bob, is that you come to something and when you said you were in, I had to verify it because I know how busy you are, and then like today, no.
He's doing another podcast tomorrow, for the record.
Actually, later tonight.
Bobby, bottle
No,
service
no,
buffet,
no.
bulletproof.
I'm,
So when it comes to
I'm
taking
here
risks-
being with the friends that I love.
know.
That's it.
I know.
That's it.
So when it comes to closing remarks, this is the part of the episode where it's like, what are your takeaways? What's your summary? When you talk about taking risks on part 2 of the Bourbon BS podcast, before we get to that, I do want to mention, once again, our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton for the Illegal Tobacco, which was, we've said it many times.
Ridiculous cigar.
Such a great cigar.
Pure
Spencer
class.
Drake, thank you for being a part of the podcast on the conversation.
Not you.
We hope that you're actually on the podcast at some point if you get to Columbus. We've got Hirochi. Hopefully we'll get Spencer, maybe, possibly. He's the one I talked to about getting Hirochi to the 10 event. So hopefully maybe in March we might be able to even get both those guys on the podcast, or Spencer or something on the podcast. But Tinderbox Season, thank you for providing that cigar. Altadis USA, I'm still smoking the Monte Cristo Espada, which is, again, I think it's a lights-out Monte Cristo. This is not your classic Monte Cristo. And I like Monte Cristo cigars. I like Altadis cigars. This is something that absolutely took them on a different path, and I love the path that they're on. So thank you to Altadis USA. BS Cigar Company. Bob already just recently sang his praises on the BS Silver. The gold will be back in circulation coming in March is the plan.
15th.
Not March 15th. But thank you very much. I do want to say also, we've mentioned it several times, it's interesting. I'm still working on it. The new year is going to bring some new things to the Patreon page, but
right.
we're at 4 people with very, very generous donations already to the monthly budget
5
for this.
right here.
And,
5.
and
I'm
Bob
good.
will be the 5th, and I appreciate that. So I'm interested to see it. I see other podcasts out there that have Patreon pages, and I'm shocked because some of them I like listening to, some of them I don't care for, but they run it like a business, and they have been able to get to a point where this is what they do. They offer more content, they do all that stuff. So I'm not looking for that overnight, and I'm not looking for anything like that really in general. But that goes back to this conversation about taking risks. It's just provide good things for people, and don't be just the nice guy, because like we never got into relationships tonight, but being the nice guy, sometimes it works out, but most of the time it doesn't.
That's right.
I wouldn't say that
I'm
necessarily.
just saying,
but
capitalize on being that. Own it. Own being a nice guy. Don't just be a passive nice guy. Don't be a passive person.
Don't get walked over.
Don't get walked over. So, Bob, what are your closing remarks tonight?
Honestly, man, like, I mean this. And this is going to sound cliche, and I hate to say this. And when I say be true to yourself, what I mean is focus on the things that are important to you and realize that there's always room to push the envelope and to go a step further. Everybody needs to get outside of their comfort zone. Your comfort zone will kill you. And I'm going to refer back to my mentor and say that your ability to have success is in direct proportion of your ability to change. When you really think about that, everybody, I want you to internalize that. It's nothing more than thinking what else is out there and thinking what you can accomplish if only you think a little bit differently about it. It's not complex. It's very simple. And take from a guy like me, I'm a nobody. I just am willing to adapt to the things around me and not take advantage of, but and or collaborate with those around me for the best possible outcome. That's it. That's all I'm about. These 3 cigars tonight I'm about. All these whiskeys about. We did 1 bottle kill. Somebody needs to kill this Willet and this Willet. I will be upset if you don't.
We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, that's right. And the reality of it is always be pushing yourself to explore what is outside your comfort zone. That's it.
That's a good lesson. Spencer.
So first off, I really enjoy the time speaking with both of you. You know, true friends. I've been friends with for 10-ish years here, and it's very cool for me to watch my friends grow and to watch my friends prosper. And I really like hanging out with people and having friends in my social circle that do better and do different things than what I do. I think if you're the head of your social circle, you gotta get a new social circle.
I like that.
As far as risk, my grandpa, who's 96 years old, said 3 things in the financial world. Cheers. Thanks, guys. To do something, and he was a risk taker, and I'm trying to be more of a risk taker. But there's 3 ways to really kind of make it in this world, and his 3 ways were to exploit labor, whereas to have other people kind of make money for you. Exploit capital, which is have your money work for you, or the 3rd way, and it's not as popular, but is marry the boss's daughter. So those are the 3 ways that
Did he do that?
He did not.
Okay.
So he decided to, the way he decided to build his wealth was he exploited labor. He had, something similar to Bobby's. He had really good people work for him. He exploited capital, whether it was, invest in real estate, things like that. Or the 3rd way is obviously to, marry the boss's daughter. But I think risk in general is whatever risk you personally feel comfortable with. But the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And again, thank you for having me. This is, I think, episode 8, 9, 10, something like that I've been on.
Not
and it's,
episode 100 yet.
Not episode 100, but, congrats on reaching the 100 mark.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy this Monte Cristo. What was the ring gauge on this one?
I think it's like 52, 54.
Yeah. So just a classic, beautifully
More of a
well-crafted
Robusto size
cigar, and it was it really went well with all the bourbons. But, Bobby, I'm glad that you came. And Steve, thank you for having both of us on the podcast.
Yeah,
really appreciate
absolutely.
it. And
Thank you,
Nate,
Steve.
Dustin, thank you for including us.
Nate,
Appreciate it.
Shout out everybody else. We have people here that love us, not for us, but for, I guess, what would be the cause.
the community.
That's amazing. The community is
Yeah.
everything. And with that, Steve, take it away.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Thank you.
I'll take it from here, Steve. So,
Actually, what I'd like to say,
Bob, go ahead.
as far as Steve's closing remarks, Bobby, go ahead.
Steve would like to say,
With part 2, it's taking risks. This is one of those topics that a lot of the weeks I really prepare to try to frame a conversation and drive a conversation. This is one that I wanted to learn from, and I know, Bob, we focused a bit more on your story, because and that's kind of the way that it's going in part 2 of these podcasts, and I absolutely love it. We've had some great guests recently, and Spencer's been kind of a not in a negative way, like a revolving door where he's coming back in. And
insight for days.
well, it's based on invitation, and he and I had a good conversation about that, and I appreciate you taking time out of your week every time you're on to come over here, depending on who it is. But this is an extension of the bourbon community,
when you think about who we are.
of the whiskey community. This is an extension of a time that the 3 of us get together. And that is a lot of times what this is all about. When we talk about it, it's like, what's ailing you? What are you struggling with? What are you succeeding with? What when Spencer always asks, he's always the first one to ask, Bob. And, yeah, how are things and all that stuff. It's not small talk with Spencer. It's always it's something that is something very valuable. That it's a beginning of a conversation. And when we're talking about taking risks, the reason I say that I am very, very thankful for this conversation, I am going to listen back to this, because a lot of these part 2s, I'm starting to sit back and try to just guide the conversation, because I learn a lot. And tonight was no exception. When I think about taking risks, I'm one that this topic for me was something that I do. And you guys said your parts, and I'm not asking for more feedback or compliments, but it's something that I struggled with for a long time, and I still do. And I think there's a lot of people that do that. You know what I mean? It's is the juice worth the squeeze? Which is very relevant when we talk about like the bourbon juice and all that stuff. It's if there's a metaphor there that can be applied to a lot of things, is it worth the money to do this? Is it worth the risk to do this? And what I learned tonight from both of you is that there is a bit of a calculated risk. You need to educate yourself. I need to educate myself. Is it better off when you look at yourself in 5 years? Am I boring you, Spencer?
Not yet.
Not yet.
He's taking it all in.
For me, I'm one to again go back to that choose your own adventure thing. I read to the end. I want to make sure I make the right decisions. When you deal with taking risks, you don't have the two options. You have 100 different options going through your head. So for me, I admire both of you guys, and that I'm inspired to the point that going forward that I want to take from you, Bob, and you, Spencer, that I can actually make small decisions based on those mentalities, and also big decisions, but also realize that the small ones day to day actually build up to the big ones, because you take care of your day to day. You don't just focus on the grass is always greener.
That's right.
You focus on, am I taking care of my home base, and if I take this next step, if there is a next step that's presented, am I going to be able to take care of my home base first? And that's what's the driving factor for me.
That's right.
So, guys, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to part 2. For everyone that stuck around for the Facebook Live and the YouTube video and everything else. We're going to be back Thursday, December 26th. We wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas next week. And we hope that if you like the Ilegal Tobaco, you want to check it out, you check that out with the special. Guys, thank you very much for being here. I'm excited for 2020. Bobby.
Dude, I don't care.
Bobby,
Let's get up for
cheers.
a hug. I don't care.
All
Let's
right.
do this. Like this is
On video and on audio.
Give the man a cheers.
Give me a cheers. We'll
We're
do
doing
the audio,
it
and then before we cut the
forever.
video, we'll hug it
I
out.
don't care.
Everyone, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Enjoy your holiday. We will talk to you on the 26th. And cheers.
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 Thanks.
When do we go live?
We're going to go live shortly. All right. Let's hug it out on video. Come on, boys.
That's right.
Oh, don't get up.
We have
Don't
known
get up.
each other for way too long. I love you guys more than anything in the world. I love you guys.
Good looking sweatshirt, bro.
Cheers. Thank you. You
Yeah.
too. Oh, my
Jesus, God damn it.